I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's February 12th. We're going to call this meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Carrasco?
Present.
Councilor Clements?
Present.
Councilor Estrada?
Present.
Councilor Manna?
Present.
Councilor Moriarty?
Present.
Councilor Palaquin?
Absent.
Councilor Steves?
Present.
Councilor Vandal?
Present.
Councilor Vecchia? Present. 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, January 12, 2015. So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, questions, concerns? Seeing none, simple hand vote is fine. All those in favor? Unanimous. Agenda item number 4, subcommittee reports. A, General Government, Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been quite a while since this meeting. On January 12th, we had a meeting Monday, January 12th, held in the George Parent Conference Room. In attendance were myself and Councilors Amelia Peliquin, Sean Moriarty, and Citizens Member Mike Janes, Acting Town Manager Kevin Pecos. Excused were Councilor Conrad Vandal and Citizens Member Holly Christo. We called the meeting at 6 p.m. The agenda item number 1 was vote to recommend the amendment of a Schedule 5 to reflect the wage classification rate change for the Recreation Director from $16.35 per hour to $21 per hour for 20 hours, as detailed in the Town Manager memo dated 12/21/14 and sent to Council for ratification. Mr. Pecos said that they had placed an advertisement for recording clerk in the this past summer and received only... This doesn't seem to be quite right, does it? I read through there. We're talking the rec director, and we've got a recording clerk on the first one. Back in September, Charlton started talking about forming a regional veteran service district, which involved Charlton giving Southbridge some program money. Southbridge had budgeted money for a recreation director, but no money for the programs. The formation of the district required that Veterans Agent Mike Trombley be in Charlton for 6 hours each week, with Charlton paying his salary for that time. This freed up some money in Southbridge for some programs, about $8,000 in the budget. Mr. Pecos spoke to the candidate 2 weeks ago, and he said he really wasn't willing to work for $16 an hour. Mr. Pecos then looked at what the other towns were paying their rec directors. The candidate was hoping for around $20 to $21 an hour. Mr. Pecos went on to say that it's not so much that we need a sports-like recreation, but we do, director, but we do need recreation more as a venue to reach out to families to provide social service support. It's not that there isn't anything for kids to do, but rather a lack of transportation and family involvement to get kids involved to and from these activities. The YMCA worked pretty extensively with the kids at the junior and high school as they came up with a list of activities that they would like to do, and very little of it had to do with sports. It was much more like cooking and dancing, computer, art classes. He said that while we were simultaneously giving the kids these programs based in the schools at night, because the facilities are there, the parents would be required to come as well. By engaging the parents and requiring them to come, they could offer some parental programs as well. Mr. Pecos said one of the primary functions of the recreation director would be to run that program. The funding for that program is now in the CDBG draft program, which the subcommittee has approved and now has to go to council. Citizens Member Janes asked how this would fit into the attempt to cut every department by 1%. Mr. Pecos said this was something in the council's goals and objectives, and he felt that he could reduce the budget by 1% and keep the rec director position. I asked if there is a new expectations list to go along with the new pay rate. Mr. Pecos said the goals and objectives are very explicit. This person would report to Mike Trombley, would assist Mike in operating the senior center, and while Mike is in Charlton, would be keeping the senior center open, and a big part of the job would also be in developing the new program. A motion was made by Councilor Moriarty and seconded by Citizen Member Janes, and there was a vote by show of hands to recommend, There was a vote by show of hands. It was 3-1. Mr. Janes was opposed, and the motion passed with a favorable recommendation to council. Agenda item number 2 is vote to recommend the amendment of Schedule 5 to remove recording clerk positions, council recording clerk, senior recording clerk, planning board's SPGA clerk, and Conservation Commission clerk, and add recording clerk position to Schedule 1, S5 description, as detailed in the Town Manager memo dated 1/7/15, and submit to council for ratification. A Motion was made by Council Moriarty and seconded by Citizens Member Janes. I asked why this went straight to S5 as opposed to S4 and was very concerned about the allowance of up to double the length of meeting time to prepare the minutes. Mr. Pecos said he did not set these salaries, it's the town's pay plan. He couldn't say why the salary levels are where they are, or why the classifications are where they are, as they have been in place for years. He did say that this was a very old pay plan and out of date and badly needs to be updated. He said lawsuits today are based on pay plans. He'll be putting a proposal into the budget to update the pay plan, and that will mean full job descriptions for every job, proper vertical and horizontal equity. We will compare with to our labor market and internally to be sure wages are paid in the way the law requires. He went on to say that the recording clerk position is one that multiple people are doing the same job and getting paid different wages. He felt that some of the allowances for the meeting preparation and recording time were excessive. Mr. Pecos said that changes had to be made, and the first thing to do was to put all the recording clerks on the same pay scale. He said some clerks are paid stipends, and stipends are unlawful. In some cases, even if there is no meeting for the particular committee, the recording clerk gets paid. He has since terminated the stipends and also time and a half. I asked if the town was actively looking for applicants, and Mr. Pecos said they have advertised outside the town hall, and only one applicant was found. We took a vote. It was 4-0, all in favor to recommend to council for this change. Agenda item number 3, vote to allow the town manager to work towards the consolidation of the town's legal representation and secure a favorable billing rate for all services as outlined in the town manager's memo dated 1/7/15 and submit to council for ratification. Motion is made by Councilor Moriarty and seconded by Councilor Peliquin. Mr. Pecos said he would like the subcommittee support and a vote of the council because he's going to be terminating contracts with attorneys as he is trying to get the town the best value for their money. He said what the town needs, the very good capabilities of a town attorney, Rob Caprera, but also needs a firm that has all the subspecialties so that we don't need to hire 8 different law firms for every specialty. He's also introducing a policy where there is a permission form for access to the town attorney, which is signed by the town manager. It does not apply to the council chairman. He will have access. He said the councilors in the policy are not allowed to call the town attorney. They will have to go through council. Interesting. Basically, what they're trying to do is to avoid redundancy and billable hours when people call up and ask lots of questions, and we find out after the fact. So in this case, there'll be some sort of oversight to any of us or anybody else, for that matter, within the town hall contacting town attorneys, and that should keep our budget down. Mr. Pecos said he was receiving bills and he did not know what they were for. He said his new policy is going to say that if he receives a bill and he can't match it up to a permission slip, the bill would not be paid. That basically keeps our attorneys on the edge of things and makes sure that they don't overstep their position and answer questions and take appointments or phone calls. So they are not going to get paid if they don't have permission to act on our behalf. Chair, I asked if they would initially be undermining their savings by bringing everyone up to speed, and Mr. Pecos said that they're not compromising their legal position at all, but they're not requiring lawyers to be present when they're not needed. There was a vote by a show of hands, and we were all in favor, 4-0, to recommend to council for this change, or for the support that Mr. Pecos was looking for. Agenda item number 4, vote to recommend the appointment of Paul Van Camp to the Southbridge Rail Trail for a 3-year term effectively immediately through June 30th, 2018, and submit to council for ratification. Motion was made by Councilor Moriarty, seconded by Citizens Member Janes. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 4-0, and the motion passed. And then we had a motion to adjourn, and that was the end of that meeting. All in favor, we adjourned at 7 p.m. It was respectfully submitted by Justine French with the recording clerk. No meeting at this time. Let everybody know when there is one. I apologize at the beginning there. There was just a little bit of confusion as to where they placed that recording clerk information. Obviously, they had been advertising for recording clerks and had not received a whole lot there, and they had been advertising for that rec director and had only gotten one really qualified applicant. That's what that little mix-up on the first paragraph was. Thank you.
Thank you. B, DPW, Councilor Vandal.
No report, no meeting schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. C, Education and Human Services is Councilor Peliquin. We have no report. She does have 2 dates in March scheduled. I don't recall the exact dates off the top of my head. I'm sorry?
March 12th.
March 12th? And then the following week as well, the 19th. And those are more or less being set for budgetary discussions. But more information will come about as we get closer. D, Planning and Development, Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A meeting of the Planning and Development Subcommittee was held on Tuesday, February 10th, 2015, in the George Parent Conference Room. In attendance were myself, subcommittee members Councilor Steves, and citizen members Evelyn Petrelli and Wallace McKenzie. Also in attendance were Cassandra Ackley and Bruce Prue. Miguel Estrada was absent. I called the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Agenda item number 1, discuss the planning board's recommendation for a zoning map change of Gulfwood Road and vote to submit to council for ratification. Mrs. Ackley said the planning board makes a recommendation and council votes on it. As this request is zoned in a mixed use of light industry and multifamily, the planning board has no problem in accepting this request. Mr. Prue wants to put a building on this lot, but the zoning has 2 different zones, and he would like all of the zoning to be the same. A motion was made by Councilor Steves and seconded by Evelyn Petrelli, with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the recommendation from the planning board for a zoning map change on Gulfwood Road. Vote by show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. A motion to adjourn was made by Evelyn Petrelli and seconded by Councilor Steves. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Chairwoman, myself, I adjourn the meeting at 6:11 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. I have no more meetings planned at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. E, protection of persons and property, Councilor Carrasco.
No meetings, no report.
And F, Town Manager Search Committee, Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, just to keep the public updated, since our last meeting, we did, the committee selected a search firm, the Edward J. Collins Jr. Center for Public Management of UMass Boston, in which we are working with Mr. Richard Kobayashi, who is their senior associate. Since then, since our last meeting when the search firm was selected, Mr. Kobayashi, to what I've been told, has met with all the counselors and also department heads in regards to, we are in the process of creating a town profile. And we are looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, where we can improve, where we're okay. So we are in the process of creating a town profile to use as a marketing tool for recruits, to see if so when somebody applies, they really know what they're getting into. What our town profile looks like, what are our strengths, what of our weaknesses, what the council expects of a town manager, what the department heads expect of a town manager. So that is being finalized. There was an email sent out to the council to review and look at the draft policy before the profile is finalized, and which we hope that we are able to present that at our next council meeting, February 23rd. To have the council vote and approve the profile before it is made public, as it will be our town profile marketing tool for our next town manager search. So that's where we are. We have no other meeting scheduled at this time. We are just finalizing the profile, and once that is done, we'll vote on it next. We hope that we can get it on the agenda for this next meeting coming up in 2 weeks, and then schedule another meeting for see where we continue with the process.
Thank you. 5, agenda item number 5 is chairman's announcements. I have just a few. One, for the general public's knowledge, we will have another joint meeting between council and school committee on Tuesday, February 17, and in that meeting, the 2 agenda items are, one is to discuss health insurance, municipal health insurance, and on the school side, obviously, there are a great number of employees that are paid one way or another through the town, and also discuss, very preliminary-wise, the budget discussions to kind of see where we are and where we're going and what the council's direction is. I also want to, it's been noted that we haven't met in a while, and that's obviously because we have had over the last month or so truly a historic winter season, snow season, 70 some odd inches or so. So I just wanted to recognize the efforts of the DPW here in town, That first big blizzard alone was just yeoman's work and unbelievable work that they had put in. And as soon as they've had a chance to relax and recover, it was back out for another 18-hour plus session, and it's just been roll after roll, wave after wave. So I just wanted to thank them. I also wanted to thank and recognize Sheriff Lou Evangelidis, who sent out, this past Tuesday, sent out a handful of inmates who helped do some shoveling, clearing some fire hydrants, things to that effect, which was certainly much appreciated. And just as I've done since I think October or November, just remind folks that we do have bylaws in terms of clearing off the sidewalks and access to public walkways and so forth. In the bylaws, there are fines involved with that. I know I've received a number of calls, complaints, emails, text messages, and so forth that I've passed along to the manager and so forth, and I know that the police are out there knocking on doors and making sure that people are taking care of this, not obviously just to tell people what to do, but more or less because this, in some cases especially, are some extreme safety hazards. Not just for your mailman or for the pizza delivery guy, but just for the kids walking to school or your neighbors and so forth. There have already been stories in other communities of people being hit or killed or injured by walking in the streets or what have you to avoid these snow piles. So we want to request that people pay attention to that. And with that, I know I had asked our cable access, there were a couple pictures and complaints that had come in, and I showed some of these to the manager earlier. This is one that they're showing up back there at the moment that we had right behind the police station. And certainly the pile itself may not look like a big deal when you first look at it, but one of the problems ends up being at the corner of North and Crystal Streets, which relatively busy street, especially with the cruisers perhaps responding to a call. There are kids who are using that large snow pile for sledding. These were sent to me just this afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock, and in some cases, this hill on on Crystal Street literally just goes right onto the sidewalk and into the street, and there are kids sliding down this hill. So that's something that, in speaking with the manager, we're going to have rectified, because that is certainly dangerous to say the least. And then lastly, this is just a pet peeve of a number of folks, that image they have there, which is right in between Pizza Chef and the convenience store. There is a vacant parking lot there, and when the picture scrolls back around, you can see, maybe not in the picture very well, but they have snow plowed through the parking lot portion of it. However, in doing so, what they've done is push the snow onto the sidewalk. So on that stretch of Hamilton Street, which is another street where there are a lot of pedestrians, you are literally forced to walk into the street because it is a good 10, 12-foot snowbank that the owner of that vacant parking lot has pushed onto the sidewalk. And so that's something that we can hopefully rectify and assess fines as needed. And then just lastly, as a quick plug, on February 28th at 7 o'clock over at Starlight on Hamilton Street, there will be a fundraising event for the Relay for Life, Cards Against Humanity Against Cancer. If you are familiar with the game, you're more than welcome to attend. If you're not familiar, just know that it's not your most politically correct card game, so keep an eye out for that. Move on to number 6, Town Manager's Announcements. Go ahead, Mr. Vecchia, Councilor Vecchia.
I'm just curious, where is Starlight on Hamilton Street?
It is right next to Crown Fried Chicken.
Okay, thank you very
I
much.
don't know the number.
Okay.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the bulk of what I have to report to the council concerns the number one topic in town, the snowstorms. So I know a lot of you are getting calls. You've been relaying those to me, and thank you for doing that so that we can see some of these problem areas and get out there. So just wanted to make a few notes for the council's edification and also the public's. People call and ask about why a street is arisen plowed, why a sidewalk is arisen. So here's generally the order in which we go when we clean up after a storm. First priority is the streets, obviously. Second priority, after we get the streets all open, is to push back the streets, because typically we can blow open 2 lanes, but we'll lose 3 or 4 feet on either side of the street, the double lanes. So the second priority, once we get the streets open, is to go back out with the plows and push those snowbanks back as close to the curb as we can. That, of course, is when people, a day, 2 days after the storm, sometimes even 3, will find a brand-new snow windrow at the end of their driveway. And we do apologize for that, but that's an obvious outcome of the fact that we can't get all the snow moved on the street. Initially, we have to go back out a day or 2 later, depending upon the duration, and that's why people see it at the end of their driveways again. Next priority is intersections. I know everybody has pulled out of an intersection where you can't see the road. You've got lousy, what's called sight triangles, to be able to see down the road, so you got to kind of edge out. Well, we go out and we knock those down with front-end loaders, and you'll see the loaders driving all over town with accompanying couple of trucks. That's the next priority. After that, generally, it's equipment maintenance. The snow plowing operations cause tremendous wear and tear on the vehicles and on all the snow fighting equipment, the snow goes, the front-end loaders. So throughout the storm, we're constantly doing maintenance on the equipment. The next will be parking lots. We've got quite a number of town-owned parking lots, as you know. We can't always get to those during the height of the storm, so we do the best we can, and then we tend to come back to them. So today, the lot out behind the fire station is being done, if anybody noticed that. Next would be high hazard areas, and that can be a vast variety of things. And then finally, hydrants and sidewalks. Now, on the subject of sidewalks, well, actually before that, one innovation we came up with this year, and I give credit to the DPW, fire, police department head, because this is kind of their brainstorm. In past years, we've gone out at night to conduct snow clearing operations. The cost of that for a single night is about $20,000, and that's because of all the overtime, the vehicle rental, et cetera. Now, it's done at night very efficiently because we can make sure there's no cars in the way. We can put signs out, have the police move cars. But it's extremely expensive, and if you can imagine, if we did that this year, the cost would have been astronomical. So we've pioneered a new technique where we go out during the day, and what we do is we post the snowbank literally at night, snow clearing the next day, no parking. A police cruiser on duty goes around with the DPW crew. It only involves 3 or 4 of the DPW folks. They're doing the work on straight time during their regular workday. We do have to rent a couple, 2 or 3 or 4 triaxles, those great big trucks, because our fleet of trucks generally has salt and sanders in the back, and we only have a couple trucks that can actually haul, and they're double axles, so we can't do much. So we rent 3 or 4 of the big triaxles. Those take 20 yards apiece. Our trucks take less than that. And basically what happens is the snow go, which is, think, a big giant snow blower, goes down the road as close as he can get to the curb, and he dumps that snow into the triaxles that we've established 3 or 4 snow fields, one up behind the West Street School, one up at the airport, one behind the sewage treatment plant. And the trick is to keep those trucks cycling so there's never a long waiting line for the trucks, and the snow go, the big giant snow blower, is constantly in motion. It never rests. This becomes a very, very efficient operation, and we've had calls from folks actually saying that they enjoyed watching it. It is fascinating to watch. The cost of the town is $3,000 or $4,000 per day versus $20,000. So this is an enormous fundraiser for the town. And again, DPW director, I'm sure I got the title wrong, but Heather Blakely, the director, Ron Trudeau, the assistant director or foreman, police chief, fire chief, all have been part of this, and they really did a great job developing this new technique. And frankly, it's saving the taxpayers a ton of money. So we're kind of proud of that. Sidewalks. Let me say a word about sidewalks. We have a regulation passed by the council some years ago that says that homeowners are required to remove the snow out in front of their home the length of their property line if they have a sidewalk, and the curb, and the fire hydrant if they have one of those also. Now, the story that we focus on is always about the people who don't remove the snow. And yes, that's important, and I'm going to talk about that. But what we really ought to reflect on first is the enormous number of wonderful, productive, helpful, law-abiding citizens who remove the snow in front of their homes, on the sidewalks, and on the hydrants. To the very greatest of extents, people who live in town and who abut sidewalks do their civic duty, and they do it very well. Most of the problems we have are in areas where we have a non-owner, a non-resident owner, somebody who lives outside of town, and they don't do their civic duty, sad to say. Some, many actually. Some do, many don't. Bank-owned properties where it's been abandoned and it's in tax title or mortgage foreclosure or whatever. And a lot of times those banks are out of state and we have a very hard time communicating with them. And I want to emphasize the local banks that you see downtown have been wonderful, incredibly cooperative, as have all the businesses in town too. But we have many bank-owned properties where it's essentially impossible for us to communicate with them. And then, of course, we have a certain number, unfortunately, of scofflaws who just prefer not to do anything, and that's pretty tragic. So the bylaw provides that we give them a $25 fine if they fail to clear the sidewalk 24 hours after the cessation of snowfall. And then the next day, if they haven't removed the snow, they get a $50 fine, and the third day they get a $100 fine, and then after that, we have no effective mechanism. We do not go out and remove snow because our bylaw, our regulation, does not allow me to commit town resources to go clear those sidewalks. That would be a violation of the town's bylaw, actually. Because what we're supposed to do is on the fourth day, give that homeowner another $100 fine. And on the fifth day, give them another $100 fine. So what we've developed is a little new technique which is working pretty well. We send a police officer to knock on the door of anyone who hasn't removed the snow. And in many cases, we get some almost instantaneous compliance because the officer promises them a ticket if he comes back later and they're not out there removing the snow. Now that's been very efficacious and is proving enormously successful. We haven't done that before. We're doing it this year, thanks to Chief Charette and his officers. They're doing a great job. But what we need is an amendment to the regulation which allows, after some period of time, for the town to commit town resources to go out and move the snow. Some people, believe it or not, will just let you send them tickets to the end of time. They just don't care. As hard as that is to believe, that is the case. And as you look around town, you'll see a lot of sidewalks that aren't yet cleared, and we have done multi-tickets to those property owners. So I'm going to be giving the council a proposal for an amendment to the regulation which will provide for less time after the storm to remove the snow, a little bit heavier ticket in order to incentivize people to do it, not the initial ticket, but the 2 or 3 subsequent, and then the authority for me to commit town resources to go out and move the snow, and then take the bill for removing the snow and send it right to that property owner, and then we will take that if they don't pay the fines and the snow removal, and we will lien it on their property taxes. And we think this will be an extremely effective tool in order to ensure compliance. Right now, with the policy we have in place, you see all over town children walking to school, and we've adopted the 1.5 mile standard, 1.5 miles from the schools, kids walk. Beyond that, they're bused. And all over town right now, you're going to see sidewalks cleared and then a section not cleared. And the kids are either climbing over it, risking falling into the street, or they're going and walking into the street, and we've got a very dangerous situation. And if there's one thing we're getting complaints about more than anything far and away, it's that. We're doing our best to remediate it. So While I can't commit taxpayer money to doing that, what we are doing is, as the chairman just said, the sheriff was very nice and sent us a crew of prisoners, and they spent time doing hydrants, sidewalks, the windrows, the sidewalks at the intersections, and that's been very helpful. Whitewater, our water contractor, has voluntarily gone out and started shoveling hydrants so that they can get at them. And finally, we have received just today word that we're going to get a crew from the Department of Transportation, state highway workers with heavy equipment for 2 days. I don't know whether that starts tomorrow, Monday, or when it starts, but that's going to be an enormous help because they come with some heavy-duty equipment. We are requesting National Guard troops. You may have heard that the South Shore has gotten an enormous number of National Guard assets with heavy equipment. I'm not quite sure how that happened because the Worcester area of Massachusetts, which includes us, has gotten over 90 inches of snow. The South Shore has gotten over 70 inches of snow. I'm not quite sure how they got the National Guard and we didn't. But we'll be seeking to correct that. And I think Councilor Manna was already making some inquiries today, and I thank you for that, with Senator Fatman's office to see if he could do some investigations, and we're waiting to get some information back to.
And Representative Lawrence.
So we are doing all that, and slowly we're starting to get some of those intersections with the sidewalks taken care of, hydrants. If you see a big blue X on the snow, that's a hydrant. That's a marker to these folks that are going around clearing these. There's a hydrant, dig it out. So we're slowly getting a lot of help to do that. I almost don't want to tell you this, but I asked the director to create a spreadsheet listing the cost for every snowstorm literally on a day-by-day basis, and the total spent year-to-date, and this is a most extraordinary winter, as I think you know, is $523,577. Of that, a little over $100,000 alone was the blizzard. That was a 3-day event. Day one cost us $78,789, day two, $17,940, and day three, when it finally lightened up, we spent about $4,000. That does not include equipment maintenance. Now, the good news is, if there is any, is that we're expecting to get somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 back, because typically we get about 70% of a declared disaster. The blizzard looks like it will make the numbers. FEMA decides it on the basis of how much money gets spent in the impacted area. It looks like we're going to make that, and we're going to get 70% reimbursement. Sometimes the state throws another chunk of money on top of that, 10%, 25%. So we're going to get a good hunk of that back. Of course, we won't get that money probably until sometime later this calendar year. It won't be within this fiscal year. And of course, the good news, the bad news, I guess, just when you thought it was safe to go back tobogganing, Saturday, the official NEMA forecast is calling for 10 to 14 inches of new snow with wind gusts 35 to 45 miles per hour. However, the good news, as they like to say, is it will be light and fluffy. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing the good news, it's light and fluffy, because we've got 7 feet of light, fluffy, white stuff, and it's really, really trying. And then following that, they're predicting another small storm for Wednesday. So this is all guided by the jet stream. As you know, the storms just ride the jet stream. When it finally shifts, as the old sailors say, it's about a 1-month cycle, then we will be out of the jet stream, and hopefully this will stop. And so, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I thought it would be helpful to you, because I know you're getting a great deal of phone calls. And one other thing I wanted to say, a word of appreciation to the public first for calling in those trouble areas so that we can get at them, because we just don't have the resources to track them. So when people call you or they call us, it's helpful. And secondly, I want to thank the council. As you know, I've done this with a lot of elected folks over the years, and you and we are so appreciative, have resisted the temptation to call directly to department heads with complaints, and you're channeling them through me. And what that's doing is it's letting me parcel them out quickly and get them effectively dealt with. And I hope you're seeing, and if you're not, please let me know, that when you call with a complaint, we get to it very quickly. I know the chairman had a complaint today that came to him from a citizen. We had it done within a couple of hours. I had one from Council Manor for a very difficult situation. It took us a couple days, but we got to it. So I thank the council for doing that, because it just makes things so much more smooth and efficient in terms of dealing with this. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them.
Councilor Clements?
Thank you. Just a comment on the fire hydrants, because the bylaw, to my understanding, is it doesn't have to necessarily be the fire hydrant is actually in front or on the side of on your abutting sidewalk. It's the closest home to that fire hydrant. So, and if for some reason your neighbor doesn't quite understand the fact that even on a rural street where there are no sidewalks and you don't have to shovel anything, there is a fire hydrant that sets 100 feet from their home and they don't get to it, I urge you to take matters into your own hands, take your shovel, walk down the street, and do what you can do, as is the case on our street recently. You know, some people will do it, and some people just don't, maybe they don't realize it, maybe they've just moved to the area. Perhaps we can enlighten them, but it is your responsibility, and really, who doesn't want an open fire hydrant should there be a fire in your area, especially if it's your home? It behooves you to go out and to do your best. So remember, it's not just if it's literally on your property line right there. It's if you're nearby to that fire hydrant, it's your responsibility to make sure it's cleaned or to get somebody to do it. So shovel around it, clean it out, make sure, if you think about it, if a fireman has to get their hose in there and hook it up, the last thing they need to be doing, as was found out in a couple of other towns that have had fires, the last thing they need to do is to be digging snow first instead of getting water on the fire. So I urge you to do that. And my only concern that I might as well say it here. I keep noticing the corner, of course, it hasn't snowed in a few days, right, officially, but with the new storm coming, my concern would be the corner of Main and Elm.
Main and Elm?
Main and Elm, the Pizza Chef, that corner, you know, we have two lanes coming down Main. When you turn right, there's a right arrow to go to Elm Street, okay? So on that corner has tended to bump out quite a bit right now, and when you come around the corner, people on Elm Street who have two lanes technically, one to go right and one to come across at the light, they're cutting that quite wide. So if you're coming around that snowbank, there's been a couple, for me personally, there's been a couple of hairy spots, but I just keep noticing that particular corner
Okay, we'll get to it in
is
the
just,
morning.
because of the way you come across from Central and, you know, off of Main. So just something to think about if you get a chance, or if the National Guard does. Thanks.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes, I just want to reiterate a point that Councilor Clements brings up. The fire hydrants, I understand that some of our residents and some of them that are digging out only what they see. They're not digging out on the other side of the road. So it would be great to be able to, again, like she said, dig out completely around the fire hydrants, because again, if they're driving down the street, they're not going to see with the snowbank. You can see it on one end, but it would be helpful. I know we had a fire yesterday on Goddard Street, and thank God that those fire hydrants were cleared, so they were able to move quickly with that. And the only question or comment that I would have with your amendment, Mr. Town Manager, is I understand that these people are refusing to whatever, they rather get a ticket. I'd rather see the initial ticket be heavy, fine them $100 right off the bat, so they get the message. We mean business. I mean, we're talking about kids. We're talking about, unfortunately, I would hate to see somebody that's handicapped trying to navigate Main Street or any of our streets right now, because some of those walkways are very narrow. So I hit them right off the bat with $100 and then keep going up, because times are tough financially, but once you get in that first initial wake-up call, you're going to say, oh, I can't mess around here. So that would be my suggestion. Hit them right off the top, because again, as somebody that drives kids to school every morning, it is unnecessary to see our crossing guards leaping or trying to balance their way through piles of snow to cross our children. The corner of Charlton Street, corner of Charlton Mechanic, horrendous. Thanks to Menards on the opposite side, great. But I don't know who owns Lippy's. Wake up, clean the sidewalks, please. Because you have a crossing guard over there in the corner trying to leap over piles of snow to get these kids safe to Charlton Street. Same thing on West Street. It's you know, and if we're gonna fine our residents and we're gonna stay under the whatever time limit that you decide to put as a suggestion, I would also hold the town accountable for that too, because we have bridges, we have sidewalks that we should clear also within the time limit. I know our guys are tapped, I know our resources are limited, but if we're gonna fine our citizens, then we should also hold our own weight, because some of our properties are not within the time limit also. So let's just keep it balanced, because I don't want to just hit the citizens and we not do our part on our end. Our guys are doing a great job considering the amount of snow that we've had, and I know it's bad news in regards to the budget, but considering the amount of snow compared to last year and this year and the amount of hours and stuff that they've worked and how they've worked, we're almost equal playing field, and we've done a lot more this year than we did last year. Thank you.
That's true.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 7, swearing in and presentations. We have just one tonight, and that is the Historical Commission. And I know officially on the agenda it says Fred Moran, who is the chairman, and Helen Lenti, who's the secretary, but there are several other members of the commission here as well, and invite them to come to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, councilors, I am chairman of the Southbridge Historical Commission. It is a body consisted of 7 members. At present, we are pleased to have a full complement of members who are myself, chairman, Casey Jolin, who isn't here this evening, he's working, vice chairman, he was the vice chairman, Evelyn Petrelli, treasurer, and Historical Commission's liaison to the Bicentennial Committee, for which we thank her very much. Helen Lenti is secretary, and members Linda Jowett, Paulette Desorzi, and Amanda Richards.
Evening, Chairman, Board. Evelyn Petrelli. We meet on the 3rd Thursday of the evening of the month in the Recreation Room of the Town Hall, which is right here, and we welcome any residents or visitors who wish to meet with us to let us know of their plans for signage, their plans for building renovation to historic properties, and any other projects in which our input is requested. We also work closely with the Economic Development Department to review CDBG grants, Community Development Block Grants, which we receive several every year, and to review whether or not a project involves changes to the historic character of a building.
Good evening, Helen Lenti. Some of the projects we've been part of in the past and in the future are the Claire Burt's art project that you've seen at the Jacob Edwards Library, where through the commission budget we funded the framing and the hanging of the exhibit, which was a lovely project. Also, we have started Saturday field trips where we've been going out as a group to view and take photos of the buildings in Southbridge that are in the Massachusetts Historic Register, and so that we can compile a booklet for people to see how the buildings changed over the years. We'll resume this project when the weather gets better, because we can't really go out right now. Also, our budget has donated funds to the library for the installment of digital treasures into the town's website online for everyone to see, and that's a lovely thing, and it's quite expensive to purchase. Also, we're presently involved in the partial funding of the refurbishment of the bronze bust of Felix Gatineau that was recently procured. It'll soon be installed for viewing at the library, and we've also accepted archival materials that people send us from all over the country when they find articles that belong to their ancestors who once lived in Southbridge, and they'll send them to us, and we'll do our best to get archival boxes which preserve these materials, and then hand it over to the library for the Southbridge room for everyone to enjoy. Thank you.
Good evening, Amanda Richards. Historical District Map. Since the Town Council has rewritten much of the zoning and town bylaw recently, including the sign bylaw, which directly impacts the Southbridge Historical Commission, we find that we need an up-to-date map of the historical district so that when we are approached by an applicant for approval for a sign for a new business, we will be better able to determine if the location of the business is within the historic district. Therefore, we are asking that the town's engineering department prepare an up-to-date map of the historic district that we can hang in our meeting room for a quick reference during our meetings with applicants. Presently, we are working on a project to make historical landmark plaques for the neighborhoods of Southbridge, the Flat, Sandersdale, the Globe, Shuttleville. These are all beautiful plaques that you have seen in other towns describing the old neighborhoods and what they were called in days gone by. We have just begun our research as to what type of plaques which will be appropriate for our neighborhoods, in addition to the cost of the plaques. The Southbridge Historical Commission has a budget of $750, and we feel these plaques may cost in excess of our annual budget. But we are hopeful that the town of Southbridge will consider this a worthy project, which will beautify our neighborhoods, and may agree to help the Southbridge Historical Commission fund the project. We will do the research and come back to the town with more information. In any event, we believe this project may be completed under this year's budget. But when our research is completed, we hope that the town of Southbridge will be receptive to working with us towards the fruition of the worthy project.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you, Amanda. I have a question. The plaques for the historical buildings, if you can't get enough funding for those, will you make them still available to the citizens at a cost?
These are not for the houses. These are actually going to be plaques that are going to be placed on the street to describe what the neighborhood is. It's not going to be the actual building.
Okay, so they're going to be at the street entrances and whatnot? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
As members of the Southbridge Historical Commission, we enjoy meeting together to discuss the history of our town, the past, the present, and the future. And we welcome and encourage anyone to attend our meetings and to bring to us any information, artifacts, or that we may turn and study and return over to the town for display and self-keeping forever. As you can see, this committee that hardly anybody even knows exists, we've been working very hard the last few years to study what was on the commission, historical buildings and so forth. We've been taking pictures, and we are going to hopefully get the map so we'll know what's going on. And it's a very fantastic committee to work for, and I thank them working with us to the benefit of the town and be able to bring to you a lot of history that's been forgotten. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, Councilor Clements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Moran, how many people generally are set to be on your commission?
7.
Are you full up? I didn't...
Yes, we are.
You did? Okay, so that's good. That's wonderful.
And we have a couple people waiting to get on.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's a testament to the work that you do and obviously the group that's formed. So thank you for your service to the
Well,
community.
I am very proud to be working with the committee, and I've been active in town government one way or another for years, and I believe that this is the best committee that I've ever worked with.
Also, thank you for being a business owner here in our community. We appreciate your settling and staying in Southbridge, and that's wonderful.
Well,
Thank
we've
you.
been here for 80 years. I look good for 80, right? Yeah.
Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, through you. Do you have a website where possibly people can make donations? Or do you have an address? Do you accept donations?
Oh, we accept donations, but right now, we don't have a working website for the committee, right? No. Something we might look into. Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to make a donation, they would address it here to the town hall?
To the town manager, I would think,
CO,
yes.
the Historical Commission?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to also thank you, obviously being a history teacher, I feel history is extremely important, so I'm a little biased on that. But clearly, for the 7 of you and for the several people on the waiting list, they would seem to agree. And I think you've already done a lot of great work and continue to do so. And even things like the neighborhood plaques for the flats and the globe and everything else, I think is a great idea and a really nice thing going forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We're good. We are moving on to agenda item number 8, citizens forums. If we have any residents here that would like to come forward to speak, please come forward, state your name and your address, and you will have 5 minutes to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Town Manager. I wish to thank you, Mr. Town Manager, for the terrific job you've done to improve the quality of life in Southbridge, especially through this trying time with all the snowstorms we've had. Also, I'd like to thank the Highway Department Superintendent for a terrific job the Highway Department has done cleaning the streets and maintaining safe road conditions, because I've driven through other towns, and Southbridge has had roads down to the asphalt, where other towns still had snow in their roads. And like I say, if it wasn't for DPW, the head of the director of the Department of Public Works and her staff, it wouldn't have been possible to see the quality of road conditions we've had in Southbridge. Also, I'd like to know if does Southbridge qualify for federal grants for hundreds of new potholes we've had in Southbridge for new road surfaces for the spring, because that is a major, major problem. Almost every street in town has potholes in it, and some are multiple potholes in the same areas. And the thing is, if we qualify for some kind of funding from the federal government, because this is a disaster area as far as snowstorms, we appreciate any kind of funding we could have to improve the road conditions in Southbridge, because we really, really need road improvement because of this terrible winter we've having. Again, I wish to thank everybody who took part in making Southbridge safe, and as well as you and all your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll pass that along. That will mean a lot to them, believe me. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other residents who would like to come forward? If so, just state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes to speak on anything not on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brent Abrahamson, 26 Franklin Terrace. I'm a member of the Southbridge School Committee, but I speak for myself and not for the committee. Mr. Chairman, as you may have heard, I was critical publicly of an article in which you were a participant along with the vice chair in the Telegram Gazette. Titled, it was in the Sunday edition, at least online. Southbridge Council leaders call for open search for new school superintendent. It was penned by reporter Brian Lee, who's here tonight. I may have made, at least according to your town councilor Facebook page that you provide for your constituents, I may have been in error, and because I publicly criticized you, I want to make sure that I publicly apologize if that's the case, if I have gotten things wrong, because that's what the right thing to do. My assumption, Mr. Chairman, was that you and Councilor Carrasco went to the reporter with a story, and it doesn't seem, from what I read on your Facebook page, you say, and I admire you for this, I promised to pledge to local reporters, but more importantly myself, that I would never offer a no comment or skirt an issue when asked by a reporter. So could you indicate to me whether I was right in assuming that you went to Mr. Lee, or was I wrong in assuming that, did Mr. Lee come to you for a story, or did you go to Mr. Lee for a story?
Sure. I can tell you that I did not initiate contact with Mr. Lee. In particular, the reference that I was making, there was some sort of comment about another story that the Telegram ran regarding the landfill, and how there was no comment from at least myself, or I assume Councilor Carrasco as well, in that article, and there was at the least an implication that there was some sort of willful decision not to comment or to skirt the issue.
Yes,
and
well,
I can state,
Mr.
and I'm
Chair,
sure.
if I may, that's not what I asked you. Did the reporter contact you about the article that's in the paper?
Right, and as I said, I did not initiate any contact with
Okay,
Mr. Lee.
thank you.
He asked me the questions.
And you've answered it. Thank you. So I was mistaken. The reporter contacted you. I was particularly concerned because it has been said, it's been offered that the school committee or the schools are the main reason, or a major reason, for the lack of being able to get a town manager. And, I mean, it's been stated here on the council that someone even left because of the schools. They wouldn't put their kids in our schools. It's been suggested that the schools are a major problem when it comes to getting a town manager. And I thought that you were saying that in the article. It says, the chairman said, the school system's condition made it infinitely more difficult to find a town manager. Now that sounds to me like it's pretty clear, but you then indicated, again on your Facebook page, that you spoke to the reporter, Mr. Lee, who conducted the interview about some errors in the article. And in that interview, I stressed that the school district's problems over the last number of years had not. You said the word not was missing from that sentence. The chairman said the school system's condition made it infinitely more difficult to find a town manager. I've tried to put the word not in that sentence, and I've been unsuccessful, so maybe you could clarify that.
Sure. My recollection was that I had stated that simply just that the, I don't have the direct quote in front of me as you do, but that it had not been doing so. I'm not going to ask Mr. Lee to come up. Being a former reporter, I know that's really kind of taboo, but I think if you were to ask Mr. Lee, he would tell you that that was an error that was made at some point in the editing or writing process, but that the intent and the tone and the message was that this was not a major stumbling block or problem. It is something that had been brought up by one or two candidates who did withdraw, but it is not, in my estimation, the end-all, be-all, or the number one reason that Joe Blow or John Doe is not coming to town or is not keeping their hat in the ring.
Okay, well, I'm sure that I wouldn't ask Mr. Lee to come up either. I'm sure he could make his own corrections wherever. Surprisingly, he has not made those corrections on the online edition, which would be easy to make. I mean, a hard copy, you can't make those additions. Online, you can.
Just if I may.
Yeah.
In conversation with Mr. Lee, again, being a former newspaper reporter, realizing how very rarely anybody, one, people are not very close readers in general, and two, very rarely does anybody ever read, and I'm sure Councilor Steves can say as well, nobody really ever reads retractions, corrections, and so forth. And in that conversation, I told Mr. Lee I was not going to pursue that. We had discussions about editorial policy. I'm not going to get into that, but so I've not asked for a correction or a retraction because, quite frankly, nobody reads them.
I believe one of the councils was signaling to you that my 5 minutes is up. Is that the case?
I am not counting the times where I respond, so you have 38 seconds if you so choose.
Okay. I do so choose, and because I have more to say. Because actually the paragraphs that follow that sentence actually support the sentence as it stands, because you do say the problem does pose, if we have a manager candidate who has children who are school age, they may decide this is not the place they want to come, that sort of thing, okay? So it seems to support the idea that, or at least the impression that you're saying that it is the schools that have taken, been the problem with the town manager. I will make this very quick. If you want to shut me off.
If you'd like, you can ask for the additional 2 minutes.
I would appreciate that, and I will finish in that time.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, go ahead.
I thank the chair. At a recent meeting of the DESE, we had a joint meeting, and the DESE was here. You said to one of those people that in the age of Google, people can Google something, like a superintendent, a potential superintendent, could Google something, and they could see all this stuff about the Southbridge Public Schools, and yes, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. You're not kidding. And then you said, who would want to come here? Okay? And they said, well, we do have some people who want to come here. That's why, you will note that the school committee voted unanimously to have a search. But I would ask this, and I will ask it rhetorically. Couldn't a town manager, potential town manager, also Google and then get the town council YouTube and have people question the school committee, have people asking for the results of an investigation, saying that the DESE should take over the schools, and the town council chairman saying that the Southbridge town schools are in a death spiral. And might that not, I ask rhetorically, maybe discourage a potential town manager for these very reasons that you listed in the article from coming to Southbridge? And we may never know how many people may have turned down or said, I'm moving on from that, because look what the main people elected in that town say about their own schools. And I thank you, sir.
Thank you. I will note that, yes, you are correct. Anybody could, in theory, do so. I would note, similar to the question that was asked to the DESE representatives, 2 of the 3 are former superintendents, and noted that they would seek out such challenge. And I think, same as conversations with our acting manager, any manager or superintendent that is worth pursuing, perhaps, is not going to be scared off by a minor challenge. not that the school district is necessarily a minor challenge, because it is a difficult challenge to overcome that's not going to happen overnight. But overall, anybody worth their salt, I'm sure, would be more than happy to face a difficult situation.
I thank the chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other residents or citizens who would like to come forward to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda? One more try. Okay. Thank you. We move on to agenda item number 9, which is vote to confirm the appointment of Kevin Christo to the Board of Registrars for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30, 2018, as recommended and unanimously approved by the Southbridge Republican Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Estrada?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Vecchia?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Agenda item number 10, vote to confirm the appointment of Paul Van Camp to the Southbridge Trail Committee for a 3-year term effective immediately through June 30, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Estrada?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yep.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Vecchia?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Agenda item number 11, vote to ratify the amendment of Schedule 5 to reflect the wage classification rate change for the Recreation Director from $16.35 an hour to $21 an hour for 20 hours as detailed in Town Manager's memo attached.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Manager?
Well, I think the council members have probably all had an opportunity to read the the memo, and basically what we did was we had an exceptionally qualified candidate. I sat down with him to offer him the position. He indicated that he would love to take the position, but the wages were too low. So we did a wage survey of the surrounding communities, and we found that he was absolutely correct. The wage for the communities around us that have a recreation director, permanent, full-time, or permanent part-time, were as much as, excuse me, $9 or $10 an hour more than we were offering at $16 an hour. So we did that survey. I gave the council the survey. I'm asking that you consider allowing us to reestablish the wage rate at the low end of that scale, 21 versus 25. The candidate has taken the job on a temporary basis, but he awaits the council's decision. In addition to that, I think it is a stated goal of the council that we have a permanent part-time rec director. As you know, recreation in Southbridge is a lot more than just recreation. It's really all about recreation, social services, family support, et cetera. Indeed, in the Community Development Block Grant application that you will pass judgment on later this evening, there's a $100,000 component for social services and recreation, and the recreation director, if we can get one, will be actually administering a good chunk of that money and setting up those programs. So we're hoping to get this candidate. He's exceptionally well qualified. Frankly, he's far better qualified than we might have hoped for a community as small as we are, that we might have been able to attract. So I think this is a rare opportunity, and I would strongly encourage the council to approve this so we can get this individual to work on a permanent basis.
I have Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the town manager. It shows here that the current effective rate of $16.35 an hour was effective in fiscal year 2014. But prior to that, when was that last looked at? Because, I mean, it's only a year, so I'm just curious.
I don't think it's been looked at since this original pay plan was put into place, and they tell me that was about a decade ago. So assuming the accuracy of that, and even if it wasn't a decade, I know it was at least 7 or 8 years, there is no wage survey backing this pay plan up any longer that has any valid meaning. And in fact, in the budget this year, I'm going to propose funding to update the non-union wage classification plan, because this has ceased to be a meaningful pay plan. It's just vastly out of date.
And who normally looks through these records to see what the rates should be at?
The survey?
Yeah.
My staff in my office, Kim and I actually did it together.
Okay, so that would be you, the town manager, and your secretary would do this on a regular basis, a yearly basis?
I
Would
can't
somebody
hear,
be
I'm
doing
sorry.
this on a quarterly basis, a yearly
How
basis?
often?
Yeah, how often
No,
should this be looked at?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you asked me who did the survey. We
No,
did-
no, oh,
yeah.
no. Who, who?
A pay plan, pay and classification plan, they're called, and I'll get into this a lot more on another date, because I'll have that request in front of you, generally has to be updated no less than every 3 to 4 years. And if you think about it for a minute, it's logical, because one of the things you do is you compare to other communities. You may be giving pay raises at X scale, and they may be giving pay raises at a different scale. So when you get your pay plan balanced with other communities, 3 or 4 years later, you could be completely out of sync again, so you have to retune the pay plan. If you fail to do it every 3 or 4 years, then it doesn't become a pay plan. It's just not meaningful anymore. Ours is at least 7 or 8 years old, maybe a decade or more old, so I think you can see tonight on your agenda, there's 2 different pay actions, corrections to the plan. I've already filed 2 or 3 in the past 6 months that you've approved. So we're getting at these on an ad hoc basis, and this is a really poor way to do it. But I don't have time to rewrite the whole pay plan. That's an intensive effort that, typically takes a consultant 80, 90, 100, 120 hours to do. It's a big project. So it has to get done at some point, because we've got a serious number of inequities, and what I'm not talking about in the next one on the agenda, you'll see what I'm talking about. It isn't just a matter of paying people competitively. It's also a matter of not violating discrimination law, and gender bias, racial bias, religious bias. This is serious stuff these days, and we have a number of those inequity problems that have got to get addressed before somebody files a claim, frankly.
Right, so is there something that can be set in policy, so this isn't overlooked again for another decade?
What happens is we put some money in the budget, we hire a pay and classification consultant, they update the plan, that gets presented to the council for review, and then the charter calls for the council to adopt or reject, and if it's adopted, it's a new plan.
I understand, but could there be something in the policy, in your policies for the employees, that this has to be done? Is there something in black and white written? Because, if this was overlooked for almost a decade, and then there's no policy set in place, then...
Yeah. We don't have anything in the personnel regulations, but we could certainly think about amending it to require an update every 3 or 4 years.
That way it's not overlooked.
That way it's institutionalized. Yeah, good point.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes, again, I know I have stated some of these concerns before in regards to the pay increase. I said it about a pay increase about a couple, maybe a year ago, about a clerk. And for me, it's troubling to go from 16 to 21, $5 increase, especially when our recreation department for the last several years, besides maintenance of fields and maintenance scheduling of fields and coordinating that aspect of it, there's really not been much going on. I know they took on a heavy load last summer with the issue with the state pool. I understand that, but there's been a vacancy. And my concern would be that we are doing a pay increase when there's really been no fruit or evidence of the work. So I would rather see it where it is now, keeping it at the $16.35, and maybe producing a schedule or an implement of how we see the work, then do an increase, because unfortunately, yeah, I'm glad that we do have a candidate that's well-liked and overqualified, if I may say, but at the same time, I'm leery of giving somebody a $5 raise and they haven't produced anything. So, I mean, to me, I would rather see it where it's at and work it up to the $21 an hour if that's the desire of this council or councils moving forward, before we go ahead and just say, all right, we're gonna reestablish our rec department and just jump $5 is crazy. That's all I got to say.
Councilor Vecchia.
All right, to begin with, we want to pay $16.35, but you increased this to $21. That's over 30% increase. I've been saying right along that I'm for cutting the budget. I'm not for giving anybody any increases. Couple things that bother me. The town manager states it includes social services. I don't see a job description here, okay? I don't like to be throwing things without a job description. Also, it says Holden pays $34, Auburn pays $22, Sturbridge pays $24. It doesn't have their job descriptions or how many hours a week the towns have to pay. If we pay 20 hours, $16.35, that's $327. I've been saying right along that I work for the taxpayers. I don't work for the employees of Southbridge. I don't work for the town manager. Okay? I work for the taxpayers. I've been saying right along we should be cutting the budgets. The single-family homes went up 5% this year. I've been saying right along the water and sewer have increased. I'm not for increasing anything. I'd like to see the budgets cut at least 1% each and every budget. I'd like to see 5%. Because if we cut the budget 5% this year, for every 1% equals $170,000. If we cut the budget $850,000, the homeowners will save 5%. That's 5% what the single-family taxpayers had to pay this year to begin with. They're only getting their money back because their water and sewer went sky high. So I'm not voting for this tonight. Thank you very much.
Mr. Manager?
I just want to be sure that the council is clear on this, because I've heard two councils refer to this as a pay raise. This is not a pay raise. There is no one in this job right now. This is a pay increase. I put the job out for the current pay range, which is somewhere around 14 an hour to 16.35 an hour. I received 3 applicants. 2 were completely unqualified. 1 was qualified. I interviewed the candidate who was qualified, and he indicated that he would not take the job for that pay, and in fact, $16.35 is clerical level pay. Recreation director is a professional position, which is a department head, which demands a salary which is competitive with other communities and their rec directors. That's why we did the survey. So what I want the council to understand is that if you don't approve this, he will not take the job, you will not have a rec director. I will re-advertise it at $16.35 an hour. I will receive no qualified candidates again, and you are not going to have a rec director. So I want it to be clear, what the implications are if you do not approve this. At the end of the day, it's the council's decision. I respect that, and I will abide by your decision. But I want it to be absolutely clear that the result of this is likely to be, I cannot hire you a qualified rec director.
I have Councilor Steves, and then I can come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I was going to say a little bit of what Town Manager said and what Mr. Vecchia said, is that I was wondering about the job description as well, but I definitely have a concern about the fact that we seem to so nickel and dime things that when we're trying to provide public services to the community, and often the public services matter to some degree more than the actual dollar value does, because when you have people doing things for the community and you get people involved in our community, that matters far more than a line on a budget item in many cases. And granted, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to undercut the importance of making sure that we're fiscally responsible, because we have to be, obviously. But we also need services in this community. And I know during the subcommittees and various other places where we were talking about what this rec director would be able to do, and some of the other things that I know in the past that the town has tried to do that didn't go anywhere because the rec director didn't stick around or for whatever reason, or because in some cases because we've been trying to do them with volunteers who actually have a life and have to go, work for a living. We need somebody who can actually do the job and dedicate the time. And unfortunately, that sometimes means we need to pay for it. I mean, I obviously don't want to get ripped off, but we also don't want to underpay it either.
I have Councilor Vecchia.
To begin with, the town manager says it's not a pay increase. Well, technically, we're increasing this job's $5 an hour. Secondly, for many, many, many years, 5, 6 volunteers have ran the rec department. We had Danny Laporte, we had George Carmel, we had Ray Carmel, we had Red Steves. They ran the recreation departments. I don't think we can afford a rec director, okay? We should be looking for volunteers. And again, I'm saying, I work for the taxpayers. I don't work for the town manager or the employees. And I won't be voting for this tonight.
I have Councilor Carrasco, and then...
Again, I want to comment to what Councilor Steves said in regards to the need of services for our community. I stand in total agreement. I really do. And I think it would be a lot easier for me to say, okay, I'm going to justify giving somebody $21 an hour if I know exactly what they're going to be doing. Because if somebody's just going to be scheduling field use, it's not worth $21 an hour. If it's, you are going to be coordinating efforts between the community and other social services and other social agencies, or however we do it, that's something else. But if we're going to just hire somebody to come in and say, okay, you're going to run our concerts on the common, you're going to come in and schedule all the use of our fields, make sure nobody's double booking, because that's what rec directors in the past have done in this town hall. I can't justify giving somebody $21 an hour. Therefore, I make a motion to bring this back until we get a job description. Because I would hate to see it defeated and then we can't justify it. So, I mean, if we can get a job description and bring it back for our next meeting in February, I think that would be a wise decision, because right now, at $21 an hour with no job description, you got a no vote. And if you look at the table, it's not going to pass, according to the statements that people have made. So I would make a motion to suspend this, bring it, and until we get a job description.
Now can I speak?
Councilor Cummins?
Thank you. First off, this came to subcommittee. The minutes are a bit gelled, or whatever you want to call it. It was very odd reading, as they were the first times I went through them, but even more so the second time. Now, it was my understanding that in the goals and objectives meetings, which I was out of town for business, so I wasn't able to attend, there was so much discussion in regard to what this community needed. Our youth needed more programming, we needed to invest more in our youth. So when I heard some of that policy and some of the goals and objectives of the council, as it was continually framed, even though I wasn't part of that, I paid attention to that. So when came subcommittee time and Mr. Pecos brought this, my first reaction was, that's a lot of money. And I know what's happened in the past when we had a part-time rec director, which was only in the last 5 years or so when Mr. Clark found a little extra money, $8,000 a year, and hired Mr. Bird, and he did some part-time work, and then other people did some part-time work. Also putting a value on a director. Volunteers are nice, and maybe in the past that's the way it worked, but these days everybody needs to make a living, and not many people, as we are aware of, because we can't even get them for subcommittees or special committees. Not everybody has the time, the energy, or the abilities to volunteer. We know that. Certainly, You could head it for us, Mr. Vecchia, but I don't think it's going to happen. So, on that note, some of the things that were discussed at that meeting were the fact that, as we kind of read in these minutes, was that there was the meeting with the YMCA, and the YMCA was proposing a lot more programs, a lot more involvement in the community for other types of things that we wanted, apparently council wanted, and the community needs, came out of this big summit that they had at the YMCA with the children and the parents and other community leaders and all these things that they wanted Southbridge to implement and put in place for our youth and to forward that on. Well, that is part of what this director is supposed to do. According to Mr. Pecos, and I asked if there would be, in my questioning to him was, where is, is there going to be an expectations list? Where's the job description? We didn't officially, he said there is one. I haven't seen it either. So to your point, Mr. Carrasco, Councilor Carrasco, I agree on somewhat. But one of the things that has come out of this is that this director is expected to implement these new programs. That's why we need somebody who is actually qualified, not just a person volunteering a little bit of time here and there, or getting a stipend, so to speak, a small hourly wage that pretty much anybody coming out of high school could get. If you've got somebody who can handle this job, who can actually implement programs, has experience, it's a teaching position basically. What you've got here is a teaching position, and you're not going to find too many teachers doing this type of job for $16 an hour. I'm not sure if Mr. Moriarty would do it for $16 an hour. I imagine he must get more than that as a teacher. This position has a lot of expectations. It's not just scheduling anymore. It's not just helping out with Mike at the senior center with the senior program, which is wonderful. It's supposed to be a whole new direction for this community based on what this council supposedly did at their objectives meeting. So while I'm not excited, by the way, and one more point to that, we're about to look at recording clerks. Recording clerk salary on the next agenda item, minimum coming in is $16.33. Recording clerks, I have a hard time with this one, personally. Not that there's anything against recording clerks, I like all of ours. However, you're talking the same wage for a person who comes in, puts on the tape recorder, and types and listens and spends their time. It's valuable. But it is not anything like what we're proposing for the youth of this community. I don't know how you can put them on the same level. I'm sorry. If you really want something to happen in this community, then you need to put your money where your mouth is and support it. I have only heard that in the last 2 years with new young counselors with young children, continually saying there's nothing for the kids, there's no support, there's no nothing. You've got a chance to make that happen now. I'm not necessarily excited about this, more money, but I certainly understand the concept. Councilor Steve said it well. You have to make a decision. You cannot have it both ways. You can't keep putting a Band-Aid and expecting it to, the wound to heal. You have to let the air, you have to open it right up, and you have to have some expectations. If this person doesn't work out, I gather they'll be gone and we'll get somebody else. But you have to have something for them to come to. You have to have a reason for a person to apply for a job and make a living at it. We have to invest in the children. I keep hearing it here. Let's invest in the children tonight. Let's bring somebody in who can get these programs going right now, get them started so that spring comes, summer comes, and our kids have something to do. I don't know. I've been on my horse long enough. Thank you very much. And I don't think it's a done deal on the vote. I take offense to that. I think we are all individuals up here, and the vote should not be talked about until we actually say what it is. So, thank you.
Councilor Manna, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. With all due respect to the councilors that are talking about not having a job description, we've had this now for about a month. So I don't understand why, if you had such concerns tonight, you didn't call the town manager and say, hey, where's the job description? Send it to me. I can't think about even raising a pay if I don't have a job description to compare things to. So, I would not support a motion to postpone this until the 23rd meeting, just because you folks didn't do your job and ask the town manager for something that you could have gotten a month ago. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilor Carrasco.
Again, I was at that youth summit, and it was initiated by the YMCA, and there were many different community programs and agencies there. Again, I agree that something needs to be done for our children, for our youth, for our seniors, because this position shouldn't just only cover youth. It should also cover seniors. It should cover the town in general. But again, I am not for giving somebody $21 an hour if they're just going to be scheduling events. I understand, but leaving that youth summit, there was a lot of information that was thrown up, and till this day, nothing's been really caught yet. There's been one or two things that have gotten the ball rolling, but again, it was not the town of Southbridge that initiated it. So if we expect the town of Southbridge to initiate it, that's one thing, but I would like to see that moving forward.
Mr. Manager?
I apologize to the council that I don't have a job description for you tonight. That's certainly a very basic tool to have for you. Subcommittee talked about it. The question didn't come up. If it had come up, or if any counselor had called me, I would have had one here tonight, I assure you. I will tell you this. The job descriptions are part of the pay and classification plan, which we earlier discussed. It is inadequate. All of the job descriptions are out of date and wrong. They're not ADA compliant, Americans with Disabilities Act compliancy. They're not compliant with a number of laws. I won't go through the alphabet soup. Your personnel plan is essentially, for non-union employees, is essentially non-existent. We have a plan, but it's out of date, it's inaccurate, it's violative of many laws, and we do not have a job description for any position, which I would tell you is up to date and accurate and consistent with federal and state law. The rec-director position is included in that. I will tell you that the rec-director has been told that his three major functions are as follows. First, to manage the town pool. Now, you may recall that we had some issues there last year, and that has cost the town a great deal of money. It is my hope that with a properly qualified recreation director, that you will have appropriate management of the pool staff, and you will not experience the loss. You all recall how much money the town lost to the mismanagement of the pool. We're talking $23,000, I believe. Now, this individual is very well qualified, and I'm not casting aspersions on past staff. I'm just saying, in the past, we've not had an effective program. That's clear, and that pool experience is an abundant example of that problem, and I'm hoping that this will correct it. So that's job one, run the pool. That takes a manager. That doesn't take somebody making $16 an hour. In point of fact, the lifesavers, the senior lifesaver at the pool is paid over $15 an hour. So I don't know how you can have a director running the pool and all the other recreation programs in the town who's paid $1 an hour more than the senior lifesaver. That's just not realistic, folks. It's not 2015. It's just not. You want to hire an accountant? You got to pay the money that it takes to get an accountant. You want to hire a good clerk? You got to pay the money it takes to get a good clerk. You want a good rec director? Then you've got to pay what other towns are paying. We've done that survey for you, and we're at the bottom end of that scale. The second thing the rec director will be doing is managing the summer youth camp. You know, we have a pretty good summer camp. It works alongside a couple of other camps that are run, and this person is the director of that camp. There's quite a staff at that camp, I'm told, and this person will be the director of that camp. Third major component, we have a brand new program, as I'm sure you are aware, which is in the CDBG application this year, and you'll be looking at it later tonight. It's, I believe, $25,000 for the purpose of creating a new program for youth centered around the schools to take place at night, and it's the product of that Recreation Summit meeting at the YMCA and then a series of follow-up meetings where we engaged all of the youth recreation organizations in town and a lot of the social family support organizations, and we had a dialogue with them. And we said, what more do we need to do to support families and support youth? And out of that came this program, which we outlined in rough skeletal form. And the very first thing that we asked this recreation director gentleman to do, who's again working on a temporary basis, was to sit down and write the grant and design the program. And I am told he has done magnificent work. You cannot pay somebody $16 an hour and ask them to write a grant, which is worth more money than their whole job, and expect that can be done for $16 an hour. That's not possible. Those are the three key areas that this recreation director will work in. And in addition to that, and you might have forgotten, but we created this year, and you approved, a regional veterans district. Part of the creation of that district requires Mike Trombley, the veterans director, to be in Charlton some number of hours per week. For Mike being over there, we will receive somewhere around, I believe it's, don't hold me to this, but it's around $12,000 to $15,000 a year. So a good part of this rec director's salary is being paid by money from Charlton for Mike to be over there, because the fourth component of the rec director's job is to backstop Mike down at the Council on Aging / rec facility to take Mike's place when Mike is over in Charlton working in there pursuant to the regional veterans district. Without a rec director, I have no one to backstop Mike. I have no one to keep that building open and functioning and offer the programs to the seniors that Mike would do were he there. So I know the council deals with a great number of complex subjects, and it may have slipped your mind that when you approved the regional veterans director, you simultaneously approved the the regional veterans director, you simultaneously approved the concept of a recreation director, because that's who's going to take Mike's place when he's in Charlton, and I'm told that's somewhere around 6, 8, 9, 10 hours a week. So I'm sorry I don't have the job description. I want the council to rest assured that irrespective of the vote you take, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I will create that job description so that you have that, so that you'll know exactly what this position will be doing, because that's obviously necessary. But I would hope that your vote tonight will not be contingent upon that, because I assure you, you'll have it.
I have Councilor Steves.
Yeah, my question is actually going to the town manager. I was hoping you could give us a quick summary of what Mr. Roenfeld's actual background is.
He has a master's degree in education. And while I would love to tell you that I might expect that for $21 an hour, we might attract somebody with a master's degree, I would be just being supercilious, frankly.
Sure.
People with master's degrees don't work for $21 an hour.
Sure.
We are extremely fortunate to have a candidate with this breadth of experience. He brings many, many years of experience in another state doing youth sports, recreation, teaching, and it is only because of some fortuitous circumstances that we have this individual in our community, and he is looking for this kind of employment. And quite frankly, what he said, and we have talked openly about it, $21 an hour, it's well underpaid, but at $16 an hour, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculously underpaid. So I think we're very fortunate to have this person. And believe me, folks, if it wasn't for this individual candidate, I would still be coming to you saying, I can't hire you a recreation director who is a department head for $16 an hour. I can't do that for you. So if the council doesn't approve this, I will re-advertise it, because the other two candidates are completely unqualified. I wouldn't even interview them. And I will try to get you somebody for $16 an hour, but I'm very pessimistic. I mean, we got 3 applicants. That kind of says something. We got lucky and got this one individual, but I think the expectation, if we don't get this individual and lock him up, while the opportunity is there, I'm not optimistic you'll get anybody to apply. But I'll try. Absolutely rest assured, I will respect your wishes, and I will try very, very hard to recruit somebody decent for that lower money.
it's interesting that we're talking about it in this regard in terms of the pay and the salary and so forth, because it's actually very reminiscent of a question one of my students had asked me just the other day, asking why trash collectors get paid as much as they do, because trash collectors make a pretty good living. Because this was a student who, doesn't really want to stay in school and so forth. I can make money as a trash collector. And I tried explaining that it's all free market, supply and demand. If anybody and everybody wanted to be a trash collector, you wouldn't have to pay a whole lot. Not a lot of people want to do that work. I think one of the problems that we have here is a little short-sighted in that we're fixating on the hourly wage when they're only working 20 hours a week. So to get somebody to devote that 20 hours a week, and my assumption is that odds are anybody in this sort of position is going to be volunteering their time beyond those 20 hours, that we're really looking, I think Councilor Steve's point kind of said that the the nickel and diming things, or maybe it was Councilman, I forget. So I think if you looked at what a bus driver makes per hour, they go out in the morning, they go out again around 2 o'clock, maybe if they have a run around lunchtime for, half-day kindergarten, preschool, but they get paid pretty well per hour, but they're not exactly rolling in dough when they go home because of the hourly rate and how many hours they get to work. And to me, this is very much the same thing. We've talked about, in addition to scheduling of fields, we've got the Petro Pool, you have concerts on the Common, we've got the Thursday, I forget if it's Thursday or Friday night program involving youth and adults. We've got the summer camp, the community center being operated or helping with that. I know he's going to be helping out with the Southbridge Fest, and I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg. It was stated earlier that we can't afford this position, but for me, I've been saying from day one since I was running that this sort of thing is something that we can't afford not to have. I don't think we can afford not to have this sort of position, personally. It's something that I complained about when I was running. I complained about as just a citizen, as a resident, helping with the Little League and other groups and things like that. It's something I've pushed for. It's something that several of our first meetings with the manager, with Mr. Pecos, since I was the chair, that I brought up repeatedly as one of my personal priorities. So for me, I think it's imperative that we do it because the kids in this community need structure. They need things to be doing. We had last year a very big debate on things like the youth curfew, and we had disagreements among us in some cases. This sort of thing, the data I was pulling out last year when we talked about that, it's those after-school hours, those early evening hours, those are the real problem areas, not 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. And that's what this program helps to address. So for those litany of reasons, I am 1,000% in support. That's why I don't teach math. Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Town Manager, I want to say thank you for kind of explaining kind of part of the process that this individual is going to be undertaking. Because, again, in the past, recreation directors, all they did was schedule fields, schedule things. But when you talk about managing our town pool, we had I think our last rec director prior to Ron Plouffe, the town pool was not operating, so we didn't have that to worry about. But youth camp, the youth night program, the Council on Aging. Tonight, I will support this because of the responsibilities. I'm trusting that this is what this person's going to do. And I ask you to hold them accountable. And let's see the progress moving forward. Because it is lacking. It is lacking in our town. But then again, I don't want to come back here 6 months later and said, this is not happening. because I will do that. I've done it in the past, and I'll do it again.
Sure. Mr. Manager?
I appreciate that, Councilor Carrasco, and I think if you don't see indications of positive success sooner, and I suspect you will, come July, probably the very first really meaningful thing that I hope you'll see is that we will be awarded this $25,000 grant, which this person wrote while not yet a full employee, as part of the CDBG program. That's in that $100,000 for social services in the CDBG. This is 25 of that money. So, and he was asked to sit down and basically create a program from a lot of good ideas that was specific enough to actually get by muster of DHCD, Department of Housing Community Development, in order to give us that grant money. And so if you don't see something before, and I'm sure you will, that'll be a very positive indication. And thank you for your kind words.
Just a quick question. In terms of advertising for this position, how well advertised was it? Where did we advertise, just out of curiosity?
Off the top of my head, I can tell you that it was local paper, regional paper, and there is some sort of trade, if you will, trade or association place to advertise in, and I don't remember where that was. And that's pretty much about the only places. We may or may not have advertised in the Beacon. I don't think so, but I know it was in the local papers, regional papers, and a trade publication.
And probably not on the website too, or no?
Oh, we
Town's
put
website?
everything on the website, yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Did I hear earlier that this salary was being paid by the CDBG grant?
No, the program, the new program that we're trying to create on Thursday, Friday nights for youth, it's actually not for youth, it's for youth and families. This individual wrote that program and is being submitted to DHCD if the council approves it later on in the agenda.
And what's the reason from 15 to 20? Years ago, if you worked 20 hours, you had to get benefits. If you worked 19 hours, you didn't get benefits. Is this still the same?
It is, but this person does not, well, I don't want to get into that too much publicly. I'll talk to you afterwards. But yes, to answer the question, 20 hours is the threshold for a benefited position, yes. So this position would get vacation, sick leave, prorated. So a week vacation would be 20 hours of vacation, not 40.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Councilor Vecchia?
Again, we keep on bringing things up. Now we're going to have to give this person benefits. Does that include insurance?
The person would be eligible for insurance if they chose to take it. It doesn't mean they necessarily will.
Yeah, don't give me this, don't tell me that they're not going to take it, okay? The point is, I don't like somebody stating up here that we're short-sighted. The problem is, the councilors don't see the big picture. The big picture is the taxpayers. Large increases in their taxes every year. Water and sewer increases. You people, go ahead and vote for all of this, okay? But we're never going to be able to lower taxes. Thank you. And he keeps on adding to this. He had to mention, because of our director going to Charlton, that now we need this director. This guy is pro-employee, okay? He's not for the taxpayers, and it's obvious to me. Thank you.
Councilor Steves?
Actually, Councilor Vecchia, the big picture includes taking a look at the services as well as the dollar value.
Could you speak up, please, Councilor Steves? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said that the big picture means looking at the services we provide as well as the tax cost, not just the tax cost. Thank you.
That's your opinion. You're welcome to your opinion, okay?
Any other questions or comments?
This guy can sell you the Brooklyn Bridge.
All right. Councilor, please.
Don't buy that.
Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Manna,
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty,
Yes.
Councilor Steves.
Yes.
Councilor Vandal,
No.
Councilor Vecchia,
No.
Councilor Carrasco,
Yes.
Councilor Clements,
Yes.
Councilor Estrada,
No.
5 yes, 3 no.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 12, vote to ratify the amendment to Schedule 5 to remove recording clerk positions, council recording clerk, senior recording clerk, planning board, SPGA clerk, and Conservation Commission clerk, and add, quote, recording clerk, end quote, position to Schedule 1, S5 description, as detailed in town manager's memo.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Manager?
As the memo to the council indicates, right now you have 4 people who are doing identical work, i.e. taking minutes of subcommittee meetings, council meetings, planning board meetings, and they're paying wage rates anywhere from $15 an hour to $43 an hour. The $43 an hour wage rate, by the way, is a stipend employee who, when you take the average hours per year and divide it by the stipend, it works out to somewhere around $40 an hour. Now, beyond the obvious fact that this is grotesquely unfair, you can't pay one person $43 to do the same job you're paying $15 for. If it were the case that in that group of 4 people, there was someone who was in a protected class, meaning women over 50, anyone over 50, women, a number of different racial and religious characteristics and gender characteristics, I already said gender, then that person, if they happen to be on the low end of that scale I just described, could file an action against the town and they would win most decisively and immediately. This is illegal, folks. This is not lawful. You must correct this. So what I'm proposing here is very simple. All of these recording clerks be put on the same pay scale. Now what that means is that none of these clerks will be getting a pay raise. They will all go on the scale that they're closest to but not less than. So they might get a little increase by virtue of the fact that their scale that they go on is the step they go on is a little higher than what they're currently at, because they've got to get on that scale. You have at least one employee who's going to receive a substantial pay cut. We are not doing this to give anyone a raise or a reduction. We are doing this to ensure that people doing the same work get the same pay so that the town can't get sued for not complying with state and federal statute. It's as simple as that. There is one mistake on here, the Conservation Commission clerk. After this memo was written, I found out that the Concom clerk is not just a recording secretary. She actually receives applications, processes them, and does far more. So if you would please not include, if it's the will of the council to approve this, do not include the Conservation Commission clerk. That will not change. So again, there are no pay raises in this. And there is in fact a substantial pay cut, and I may well lose an employee over this, and I'm not happy with that, but you cannot set wage rates on the basis of the people in the jobs. You have to set them on the basis of pay equity in the law, and in this case, we are doing something very incorrect.
So if I understand you correct, what you'd be looking for is essentially an amendment to the motion to include, to strike the Conservation Commission clerk from this change.
That's correct. And then all the recording clerks that are on the list would all be put on the same pay scale. And then wherever they are currently being paid, they will go to that scale, that range, to the step that they're closest to. Okay. The one person who's on a stipend, unfortunately, is so materially above the top of this range, they're either going to stay with a very substantial pay cut or they're probably going to leave. And I can't help that. I can't do anything about that. And I feel badly. I've had the employee in. I've explained this. I don't blame them if they don't stay. But on the other hand, you simply can't pay somebody differently for doing the same work. You can't do it.
I have Councilor Steves first.
Oh, no.
All good? Okay. Councilor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the town manager. I looked up that law, Chapter 151B, Section 4, and I went through it, and I was looking through it, and way down, I don't know what you want to call it, 17, it states, now I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just confused on this piece in that law. It states, notwithstanding any provision of this chapter, it shall not be unlawful employment practice for any person, employee, labor organization, or employment agency to observe the terms of a bona fide seniority system or any bona fide employee benefit plan such as retirement, and it goes on to say that. So I guess I'm a little confused in this. Do we not go by a seniority system here on this pay scale?
Do we what, I'm sorry?
Do we not go by a seniority system on this pay scale?
We do. The longer a person is employed with the town, the higher up the scale they move. I believe there's 6 steps on the scale, and so each year, the council's regulation on employee pay provides that each year an employee is here, they go up 1 step on the scale. So indeed, as it stands right now, the people that are higher on the scale, presumably, have been with us longer and moved up the scale. I don't know the answer to that question in terms of but I'm presuming that's how they got the different places on the scale.
Right, but I guess I'm confused on your interpretation that you're giving us of the Mass General Law and what I found in the Mass General Law, and that's stating that notwithstanding any provision of this chapter, it shall not be unlawful employment practice, and then it clearly states, observe the terms of a bona fide seniority system. So if we're going by a bona fide seniority system and this pay scale goes by that, then I'm confused why you would want everybody on an equal pay scale.
The seniority system only applies within the pay range of the system. In other words, along the 6 steps. You have a pay classification, and then you have 6 steps. Within those 6 steps, seniority is determined. So a person who's been here 7 years, who's senior, would be on the top end. A person who's junior would be on the bottom end. Think about it logically. It could not possibly mean that the longer you're here and have more seniority, that a clerk could be paid more than the police chief. I mean, it's just...
No, and I get that, but
means.
the recording clerk has its job description, it has its pay scale. I totally get that. So if, let's say, recording clerk A has been here for 2 years and she's making $20 an hour, and recording clerk B has been here 6 months and she's making $15 an hour, well, that would seem fair to me.
That's completely okay.
Okay, so...
And this is not violative of that in any way.
Okay, so
in fact,
I'm confused then on what you're actually proposing, because to me, you're proposing to change the pay scale that we have, and it seems to be
as you'll
accurate.
notice right now, you have the council recording clerk a grade 3. You have the senior recording clerk a grade 3, the planning board clerk a grade 4, and one other recording clerk a grade 5. And in fact, if you look at the pay scale that I've attached to the minutes, to the amendment, you'll find that S5 is the proposed classification, and the reason is because the people who are actually in the positions are all being paid along this scale, and the most senior person is being paid that 1986 figure. So you either have to take the person being paid the high number, 1986, and cut their pay very substantially. And that is a long-term employee who's been with this town a long, long time and is being paid that because that's what they were given by a previous town manager, not me.
Are we is the town as an employer allowed, is that allowed to?
Is what allowed,
Are you
sir?
allowed to cut somebody's pay if they're still in the same position, though? I mean, I don't see that as good
You don't raise
practice.
or lower the person's pay. You establish a pay scale for a certain body of work.
So you're restructuring the job? That's what you're doing?
What we've determined is that the pay scale for recording clerks should be a grade 5 based on a comparison to other jobs that are on that same pay scale. And that's why I gave you the whole pay plan, so you can look at it and you can see, where all these people are, and you can see that they're all over the place, but they're all doing the same work. They're recording minutes, just what Max is doing right now, taking the minutes of a meeting. But they're being paid different things. The only variation is they're working for different boards and committees. That has nothing to do with seniority.
Okay, so you're saying that the boards, it was all decided by the board, and then it was, okay, I think I get what you're
Honestly,
saying now.
I don't know who decided where these people would be, and I was only trying to staff your subcommittee meetings with clerical assistants to take your minutes, and I was trying to find people who would do it. I advertised it. I got one person, that was it. I'm sorry, we got none. And so I started making inquiries. Why would nobody want to work for what I thought was pretty okay pay, $15 an hour, and come to find out, because it's all at night, and people don't like coming out at night for 2 or 3 hours for $15 an hour. So we started looking at our own staff and said, would you like to work some extra hours? And we have a person who was specifically tasked on staff full-time, who was specifically tasked with taking your subcommittee minutes as part of that job. It's actually part of the job. And that person was being paid a certain rate. And then you had other people who were being paid completely different rates, taking subcommittee minutes and minutes here. And then you had a fourth person who was on the stipend. And stipends are absolutely unlawful by FLSA standards, Fair Labor Standards Act. And when you computed the hours that person worked and divided it into the stipend, they were up around $40-something an hour.
Yeah, that's a little high.
So you've got to get all these people on the same scale, and the S5 scale is the scale that seems logical in the pay plan to put these folks on.
So I guess my next question then would be, as I look at this, would you go, if this is adopted tonight, would the most senior person make the maximum, or step 3 or step 2? Would you go by that seniority that way, or would they all start out at
Again, they're
minimum?
all being paid a rate now.
Okay.
They will go onto this scale from $16.33 an hour to $19.86 an hour.
Okay.
And they will go onto one of those 5 steps. I'm sorry, I said 6 steps. It's 5 steps. They will go on that step that they are closest to, but not less than.
Okay.
So no one will have their pay cut.
Okay, I guess that's where I was getting
The
confused.
secretary on the stipend, who's way up in the 40s. That unfortunately, I mean, I can't justify a $40 an hour wage rate when the top of the scale is 19. So that one is going to get cut dramatically. And we may lose a person over it. But, by the same token that you have to standardize all this, you have to standardize it. This is something that's been going on a long, long time, and sorry I'm fixing it.
Well, no,
it
don't
does
be
have
sorry
to
that
get
you're
fixed.
fixing it, but thank you for clarifying things for me, because your interpretation, then I read this, and now I'm more clear on this, so thank you very much.
By the way, there's not a lot of money involved in this. The total budget for these clerks, I think, is $2,300 a year, all of them combined. So we're not talking about a lot of money one way or the other. What we are talking about is pay equity and making sure we don't get sued. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Councilor Clements.
I still have one concern that I didn't see addressed after that meeting, and that was on the original sheet. You've got the, under council recording clerk, you've got review agenda, attend meetings, and up to double the length of meeting time to prepare minutes. And I was concerned about that at the subcommittee meeting, and I guess I'm still concerned about that in terms of job description, again, for recording clerk, because giving them up to double the amount of time when sometimes we get a paragraph, it just doesn't seem quite.
I will frankly tell you, I was concerned about it too, because I have never in my career heard of such a provision. What I am told is that recording clerks have to take the minutes, and then it takes some time to take those notes, to turn those notes into the actual minutes. Now, in the case of this council meeting, I am absolutely certain that it takes at least a couple hours to do that, and it takes probably longer than that. In the case of the subcommittee meetings, and I'm going to have a proposal for you in the budget, which is going to reduce cost, because frankly, subcommittee meetings, a lot of them last a half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't know any earthly reason why it would take a recording clerk 45 minutes to sit there at the meeting and then an hour and a half to produce the minutes. If it comes to that, then my intention is I will take the minutes, because I go to all those meetings, and I will produce those minutes while you're sitting there on the computer, because that's about how long it ought to take. And that's my expectation with other people. But this provision was put in by a past council. It was not put in by this council, it was not put in by this manager. It was put in by a previous council. And what I'm told is that, at least for now, we should not tamper with it in order to make sure that we're not, we would have to make some variation between these council minutes, the Conservation Commission minutes, and the subcommittee minutes, because the subcommittee minutes qualitatively take less time than this council or the Conservation Commission. I'm sorry, or the planning board,
Sorry, I guess I have to disagree in some ways. I mean, I've taken some minutes too for that and then reproduced them at home. And if you are qualified in taking minutes appropriately in a meeting, you shouldn't have, it should take half the time then to put it back together, because you should be able to, as some of our clerks are very good at, they take the minutes, they type up the words, they re-listen to some of the recordings, yes, to make sure a statement was correct, but I don't see how it should take double the time to produce something that you're paid to do, because you're supposed to be qualified to do it.
One cautionary note, I'm trying to fix one problem with this change tonight, and I didn't look at that one. I do want the council to understand that when I was trying to get someone to take the minutes for your meeting tonight, I had exactly one person willing to do it. I wouldn't tamper with this until I've given it some thought and some consideration, and I can come here and tell you that if you change this, you're going to end up with no one who will take your minutes. As it is right now, I'm having a very difficult time getting anyone to take these minutes. So if you take this away, that could have some very harmful effects. Again, I advertised the position, I got no applicants, none. And by the way, I think we've advertised it 2 or 3 times now, and we've had no applicants. People don't want to come out at night and take minutes at meetings. It's a very hard job to get people to do.
For further discussion, yes.
I have Councilor Steves and then Councilor Vecchia.
Mr. Chairman. 2 things. One is that, just to follow up on what you were just saying a second ago, I think part of this phrasing was probably put into place back when we didn't have laptops. So you had to take hand notes, and translating those to a computer at home takes some time. Being a reporter, you know what that's like, Sean. And the other element I wanted to ask about is, if we are eliminating the Conservation Commission clerk, that'll be staying the same. That's still a stipend. How do we deal with that issue?
Again, I have to deal with these issues one at a time.
Yeah.
And so the information about the Concom clerk being much more than a clerk,
Yeah, I know
title is
I know
wrong.
she is, yeah.
Again, your pay system is enormously out of whack. You have people working in jobs that don't have the right titles. You have no up-to-date job descriptions. You have people doing the same job and getting paid differently. It needs an enormous amount of work. I can't fix the whole thing.
Right.
I just don't have time. So does that need to be addressed? Yes. Does the 2-hour provision in here, or the double time, need to be addressed? Yes. I'm trying to fix the worst problem that is going to get you sued, and you're going to lose. Now, are you going to get sued and lose because you got double the time to take minutes? No. Are you going to get sued because the Concom clerk title is wrong? No. In time, I will fix those things too. But the thing I'm trying to fix for you tonight is the one that's the biggest problem.
I have Councilor Vecchia.
Through the chairman to the town manager, you're making a statement that the 2 girls would not take the minutes tonight because we have to change this for them to take the minutes? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that.
What are you saying?
I said that when we asked for someone to take the minutes tonight, there was only one person available to do it.
Where are the 2 girls that usually take the minutes? Why aren't they here?
I haven't any idea.
It's Thursday. They usually...
They're not on strike.
Oh, God, no.
Well, you're laughing at that, but here we go again with threats. We got to vote for this. We're getting threatened. We got to vote for this, or we're not going to get anybody. All we seem to get from you is threats, okay? And I'm sick of them. Now, I'm voting for this anyways. It's got nothing to do with you, because everybody should be equal. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda item now. We're going to amend, I'd like the motion to read, amend it to say, Schedule 5, to remove recording clerk positions, council recording clerk, senior recording clerk, planning board / SPGA clerk, end parentheses, and add recording clerk position to Schedule 1, S-5, description as detailed in town manager's memo.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to amend? All right, you're all set, Mr. Gullickson, with that?
It was just deleting that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Vote.
Good, okay.
This is on the
Roll call,
amendment?
please. This is for the amendment itself. to
Okay,
amend the
Councilor Moriarty?
motion. Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
No.
Councilor Vecchia?
No.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes?
Councilor Estrada?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no.
Unless we have any further discussion, now we will take the motion rather, we will vote on the main motion that has now been amended, unless there are any questions or comments.
Yes. Was there a second on the motion to amend? Was there a second on the motion to amend?
Yes, over there.
Oh, okay, I didn't
Yeah.
hear it.
You just didn't hear him.
I can hardly hear you when you speak.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Vecchia?
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Estrada?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 13. Vote to authorize the town manager to work towards the consolidation of the town's legal representation and secure a favorable billing rate for all services as outlined in memo.
So move.
Second.
Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Vecchia?
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Estrada?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yep.
8 yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 14, vote to ratify the amendment dated January 20, 2015, to the town manager's contract to reflect an increase in total hours from 37.5 hours to 40 hours per week, effective immediately, as outlined in memo.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Councilor Steves.
Yeah, one quick question. You mentioned in your memo that the town manager's budget will still generate a surplus.
We can't hear you.
You mentioned, your memo mentions that the town manager's budget will still generate a surplus by year's end. How much? Do you have a rough idea?
It's 2.5 hours.
No, but what would be the budgetary surplus?
Yeah. I know what the amount is,
Sorry, I
yeah.
was a bit distracted. The budgetary surplus will be in excess of $7,000.
All set? Councilor Vecchia?
This humors me, because everybody's getting increases, now the town manager wants an increase. He wants an increase, really, he's a salaried employee. He's not an hourly employee to begin with. But 2.5 hours is $65 an hour, that's $162. If you put that in his 37.5 hours, that's an increase of almost 6%. He's only been here 7 months, and we're going to give him an extra $162. Again, I'm for cutting the budget. I'm not voting for this. I think we're paying him enough. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
The council has adopted a daunting set of goals and objectives, which I am most anxious to try to accomplish for you. This request is made so that I will have the advantage of an extra 2.5 hours a week to get that work done. I routinely give you far in excess of 37.5 hours a week. I'm a contract employee. I am not an employee in the sense of you can pay me for X amount of hours and I'm expected to work whatever goes beyond that. I am an interim town manager. I have a contract with the town of Southbridge. It requires me to work 37.5 hours a week. I routinely give you vastly in excess of that. I let you call me on the weekend. I let you call me at 11 o'clock at night. Apple, I let you call me at 6 a.m. I let you call me Thanksgiving morning. And I came to your assistance. I'm not asking for anything other than the fact that I'd like to give you a couple more hours a week because I would like to do the work for you. If you don't want to do this, that's fine, I understand. And one other thing, Mr. Chairman, if I might, while I have the floor. Twice tonight, I've been personally attacked and insulted. Would it be asking too much to ask the chair to instruct a council member to treat me with respect and dignity that I deserve? Thank you.
And just as a note with that, within the Robert's Rules of Orders, which we are to follow, there are a number of provisions in terms of demeanor and code of conduct. We can go over that
I
another
got
time.
something to say to you. You, as the chairman tonight, told these people you were voting for this because some of us are nearsighted on this, I think. Okay, you insulted us, all right? So just remember that.
Point of order, please, Mr. Chair. He's out of line.
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Councilor Vecchia, Mr. Chair did not ask me or tell me anything about the way he votes. If
He
you want to
called
be
us
honest-
nearsighted
to be
about the
honest with
recreation,
you,
okay?
I heard you
That's
speak.
opinion.
If we may, we will proceed in an orderly fashion. We can discuss semantics of words. Nearsighted was not one of them, but we will move on. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns on the agenda item itself? Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the town manager. I truly appreciate your work that you have done for this town. You have gone above and beyond the call of duty. You have taken my calls. You have sat on the phone with me and talked with me for an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time. You have gone above and beyond what was asked of you. So I appreciate, and I will support this tonight. Thank you.
Just want to add, as somebody who also gets a lot of phone calls from various councilors at, in some cases, odd hours or other odd days, I just want to point out, regardless if there are things that the manager and I disagree with, things we do agree with, and that is what it is. We move forward. I have seen and recognized that he does do far and exceed of those 37 and a half hours. I know during the blizzard, I believe, if I recall, came basically straight from your brief vacation in much warmer climate, and basically instead of going home, came straight to Southbridge and stayed in town for 3.5 or so days consecutively, and really trying to shepherd the departments through the storm. And a number of department heads, even the school side, I heard you don't often hear the positives that are brought forward, but I heard a lot of positives in terms of the way things were run and therefore, and so forth. So I do commend you on that. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Town Manager, you did mention that you're under a contract.
Yes, ma'am.
I would advise this council to be very careful on how we go about this, because if we look at the contract when Mr. Pecos was hired, we are not paying for his cell phone bill. And we are the ones that are taxing his cell phone bill. And in turn, as a contract employee, he can turn around and turn in that bill, turn in the expenses that he is accruing by doing the extra work. So I would advise the council to be very careful, because it's to our benefit an addition of 2.5 hours that he's going to be physically in the building or hands-on at work. So Super Bowl Sunday, I know it was the second storm, he was in town. He stayed in town. He worked the snowstorm. I recall getting about 7 or 8 text messages throughout the blizzard informing us on day-to-day updates, almost basically hourly updates on what was going on. So I would just advise the council to proceed with caution in this matter, because if we want, we can then look at excess expenses that will probably total more than the extra 2.5 hours. That's all I got to say.
I have Councilor Vecchia.
I think the town manager is doing a very good job, but this is $162 more a week. I'm trying to cut the budget, so I'm not voting for this. I have nothing against the town manager. I think he's doing a good job. Thank you.
Councilor Clements.
I think the 2.5 hours are a moot point. Obviously, the town manager, we've all heard it, we've had the testimony. What concerns me is the lack of hours of a town manager in our office, and the burden it presses on the other administrative assistants and such, the secretaries, or whatever the proper term is these days for our administration there. There are decisions being made when the town manager isn't in that are town manager decisions, and they're being made by sometimes our clerical staff or our administrator assistant does a fantastic job, but there are decisions being made that should be made by our town manager. And having these extra 2.5 hours of physical time, regardless of where he is on a phone, and I'm sure he's many times called by the office for questions, just helps us as a community. And let's be reasonable here. We can cut the budget all we want, but we're never going to cut it from our town manager's salary. There is going to come a time when we're going to hire a full-time town manager, and they are going to get a salary. Let's not pretend that number doesn't exist. Very soon, we have to budget for that, and that is going to be a substantial amount of money to pay for a full-time town manager, no different than what we're doing now. We have a full-time town, we need a full-time town manager. I'm surprised this hasn't come up sooner, truthfully, with all that has been getting accomplished. And again, applaud you and your efforts during those storms, because certainly we have never had anybody stay and do the job you have done, and that is in with respect to the request by this council to cut or to find efficiencies in our DPW and our snow efforts and such. So, you took it to heart, you stayed, you did it, and great for that. So, and there's still, according to you, there is a surplus currently within the town manager's budgeted amount. Therefore, let's just take the time. Let's use them to our full advantage while we have them, and let's find a permanent town manager that can continue on with this community. But in the meantime, let's just do it. Thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Go ahead.
I have a simple question that just doesn't make sense to me. Why was it 37.5 hours in the first place? It's a full-time job. I don't understand that. Thank you.
If you recall.
I don't know. I was happy to do it at 37.5 or 40 or whatever the council wanted. Experience has shown over the course of the last almost 8 months that in order to do the job and do it properly, I need to do it as a full-time commitment. An interim typically is not hired to make a full-time commitment. They're hired to make a certain number of hours for a certain hourly rate. I love the work, and so I don't mind doing the hours. I just enjoy it immensely, and I like Southbridge a lot. I like this council, and I like the staff, and so I'm happy to do it. But I don't like doing it for free, and because the budget allows those 2.5 hours. I mean, I'm going to be honest with the council. You vote this, you don't vote it, I'm still going to work 50 hours a week for you. I'm still going to do it because I like it. And so having said that, that gives you the perfect opportunity to not approve it if you want. But the reality is, I don't know why we did 37.5. I don't know. But I'm spending a lot more time and driving here a lot more and doing a lot more expenses than I'd ever anticipated I would do. And I'm staying 6 months more than I'd anticipated I would be. And that's all wonderful. Truly, it's wonderful. I love it. I wish circumstances were different and I could be a candidate for the job, but that's not in the stars, as they say. So this is just an opportunity, frankly, to provide a little bit more remuneration for the work I'm frankly already doing. So that's what it is.
If I may, I believe part of it is, one, the town hall is open for 37.5 hours. or the average employee here works that. Two, the manager started off working here as well as in the Berkshires, shepherding, doing the same job out there. And just worth noting, I recall the prior chair kind of led the negotiations and discussions with Mr. Pecos when he was brought in as our interim, and what Mr. Pecos originally offered to take the job for was substantially lower than what Mr. Reed, our prior interim, was being paid. And it was bumped up a little bit, but I still believe it was below what Mr. Reed was being paid, and certainly below the going rate for somebody who was anticipated to do it for a few months, if that, which is now going to be doing it for about a year or so, which is obviously a different set of circumstances as well. Councilor Vandal?
Thank you. I heard from a reliable source that Mr. Pecos spent a couple of nights sleeping here in Southbridge while the storm was going on. So he can't be that bad of a guy. Thank you.
You haven't talked to my wife, have you?
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Vecchia? No. Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Estrada?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 15, vote to approve expenditures of snow and ice removal in excess of available appropriations pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Manager?
This is fairly simple, members of the council. The town budget's $200,000 in the snow and ice budget in the DPW. You hold another $200,000 in reserve. And the law requires, the statute cited here, is in order to exceed the budget and tap into that reserve, we must receive a vote of the council. The practical situation, as you heard earlier this evening, I reported that we'd already spent over $500,000. The practical situation is because the council, at the time we put this on the agenda before the blizzard, we were still below that number, and during the blizzard and the two subsequent storms, we went over it. So we're doing this, a day late and a dollar short, as they say, but it still is a legal requirement to be able to do it.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councilor Steves?
Yes. The quick question is, obviously, if we've already had $500,000 in expenses and we've only got $400,000 currently between the two line items to cover this, where's the rest of the money coming from? And I'm assuming we're going to get whacked this weekend and sometime before the stuff actually finally melts. So.
Statute allows you to amortize a snow and ice deficit in either of one of two ways. Mm-hmm. You can close out budget surpluses against it at the end of this fiscal year, and typically Karen tells me, as CFO, that's what she does. And we will have a lot of surpluses in a whole variety of budgets. And so we'll, if possible, we'll close out against that. The other alternative is you can report this to the assessors, and they take it off the top of next year's taxation. So it comes off the top in fiscal 16. Generally speaking, what we do is we carry a reserve when I'm doing the forecasting right now, fiscal 16. So I carry an amount of money in reserve in case we go over even the 400,000.
Yeah.
So those are the two ways you take care of it. So we're, as you say, we're already 140-odd thousand over the 400. So that will either balance out against surpluses and other budgets on June 30th. Mm-hmm. And I would expect that's what we'll do. And if for some reason, well, frankly, we won't go beyond that. I mean, we'll balance it out against surpluses because we generally finish with over $1 million surplus. Okay. So if we spend another 100, I mean, I hope we don't, but if it ever stops snowing and we stop spending, if it's 100, 150,000 we have to cover, that'll close out against surpluses and other budgets. It won't affect the 16 budget.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Estrada?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Vecchia?
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 16, vote to ratify grant components for a fiscal year 2015 Community Development Block Grant for a total project grant award of $825,000.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I'll give you the 1 over 100,000, and Sandy's here for more specific questions. First, an apology. This went to subcommittee twice, and it should have gone back, and it's been through some amending. We've changed the amounts in here. It should have gone back to the subcommittee the third time, but it had to come to the council tonight because it has to get filed tomorrow no later than midnight. So what ended up happening is when the subcommittee meeting for this, they're blending together, Tuesday?
There
Was posted, we thought this would have been already dealt with the subcommittee last week, which got canceled due to the storm. Right. So this ended up coming directly to the council without having come to the subcommittee. What I will say, and not to replace Council Amanda's report, but the substance of this went to the subcommittee twice, and I think was blessed in, if not the specific numbers, the structural components of what's in here. So, $75,000 is administration. We use that money to pay our own staff to administer. And there's a lot of administration that has to go into doing this. $145,000 is housing rehab. That's something you've been doing for a long time. If there's any questions about that, happy to answer them, but I won't take extra time. $349,800 is for Overland Street Phase 1. Again, this is something that's been a council priority in past years to do infrastructure improvement. And past year's design money has provided for most of the design, and now this is actual construction. Economic development, that's the plan we've been talking about in your goals and objectives, to begin doing some actual hardcore attracting of other businesses and industries to town. The $100,000 for social services is in 3 programs. Sandy, if I stumble here, help me please, but the Seniors Hispanic Program at the Council on Aging, the Youth Evening Program that we've just designed, and I am drawing a complete blank on the third one.
I'd like to say good evening, but it's really good night now because it's so late. So the $100,000 is allocated, $25,000 for the in-house program at the Y, $37,500 for a fantastic program to help junior high age kids or middle school kids with pre-employment skills.
That's it, I'm sorry.
And then $37,500 for an elder program, and that's it.
Right, thank you. That third component was the job training program that we're going to be engaging in. $105,000 is for the incubator. Now, at the present time, we don't know if that'll be 70 Foster Street. We don't know if it'll be a different location. We're having the engineering analysis done on 70 Foster to find out, is the building habitable? And if it is habitable, how much is it going to cost to inhabit it? We may find $105,000 is not adequate to do all the repairs, in which case we'll put that money into it, but more money will be needed. We just don't know yet, but this is what we're submitting at the present time. And that is a total project grant award of $825,000. That is the maximum that we're allowed to apply for this year, and so we're going after the maximum we can get. These program components have been discussed with a large number of stakeholders in the community. We've had several meetings. The youth job training program, we had a large group of business people in and staff about a week ago. That was the second meeting we had on the subject. Learned a lot in terms of how to redesign that. Sandy has done yeoman's work with some outside help from Community Action in Worcester that administers some programs here. Our own temporary rec director has done a lot of program design, as I reported to you earlier tonight, on the youth recreation program. Those are both new, and we think we've got a really terrific program here that addresses many of the council's priorities and those goals and objectives you did. And I'm very happy that we've got some new components in here that you haven't had before that are areas that I think the council wants to see us making some progress on.
Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to add to that, everything that we're looking at here fits in within the scope of the master plan. It's all within the scope of the master plan. So if you want to look at that, Sandy actually, she went through the master plan for me and went page to page for me. Not that I haven't gone through it before, but she knew exactly where everything was, and she sent me the page numbers where everything kind of fits in. So that was very good. I guess a question on the social services, the elder program, what was that going towards?
The elder program is a multifaceted program that we conduct down at our own Council on Aging for Hispanic seniors, correct?
We had to issue a request for proposals. And we did get 2 proposals.
For the same program.
For the same program.
But let me back up on that.
But one of them is for more than Hispanics.
Oh, it is? Okay, fine.
And, yeah.
What happened is we got a grant some years ago for a tailored program. It was a wonderful opportunity. Unfortunately, the state didn't fund it again. And so we had a lot of great seniors down there that were enjoying the program. So what we did this year is we used CDBG program money in order to continue the program. There is no funding for it next year. I would hate to see the program end, and so we put it in here.
I agree, but I also would like to see our seniors, I guess we have what is it called?
Los Americas. These are all town residents.
Yes, and I totally understand that, but it would be nice to see the money split or work together somehow, because we have multiple seniors in our town.
Yeah, and I think the reality is what you see is when you run a senior program, and I'm experiencing this personally now with my mom, who lives in a community with a very diverse population. And what you find is that all of us tend to group ourselves along different cultural, linguistic groupings. And so it is very much the case that there was a large segment of our senior population that we were not attracting, for whatever reason, to the Council on Aging Center. And there was a realization of that. So Senator Moore, before he left office some years ago, got an earmark in order to create a program that would bring folks in that were not, that for whatever reason weren't participating in the other Council on Aging programs. And it was wildly successful. From what the Council on Aging Director, Mike Trombley, tells me, we have literally hundreds of seniors that participate in the program. So when it was the case that we didn't have funding this year from the state, we substituted CDBG money to continue the program. And I had discussions with Senator Moore in terms of could we expect funding next year, and he said unlikely. So I made the decision to put it in the draft program subject to the council's approval. It's not perfect, but on the other hand, it is literally hundreds of Southbridge senior citizens that find great value in this program who frankly would otherwise not be served. They simply would not.
Right. And I agree with you on a lot of those marks that you pointed. I just want, it'd be nice to see the money split amongst many. You know, that's what I would like to see.
We're trying.
We have a multitude of seniors in our town.
We are actually trying, as Sandy indicated, we are trying to do more cross-cultural things and bring more people together.
That would be wonderful.
But we have to respect and understand the realities of diversity and language barriers and all those sorts of things, and we have to proceed in an intelligent and thoughtful way as we try to blend those populations together. But what we don't want to end up is making a precipitous move that ends up taking a lot of really wonderful seniors and suddenly depriving them of this program they've come to rely on.
Yeah, I understand totally what you're saying, and I'd like to see the social services for the children be split up amongst a couple other groups in our town, too, that serve our youth and the community in a very positive way. So I just wish that this money could be split up evenly amongst all these groups, that's all.
Mr. Chairman, could I just say something?
By all means.
I think you will find that it is going to be a combined program.
We're definitely trying to move it that way, definitely trying to move it that way, yes.
I'd like to see the social services for the children also reached out to other...
One other point to remember is that the traditional, if you will, Council on Aging program is funded by taxpayer money from Southbridge. And it's not getting to a lot of our senior population. So we're using this CDBG money to get to that population. So if you think about it, both of these populations are serviced by government money, which is creating these programs. So by using this CDBG money, we're actually sparing Southbridge taxpayers from having to fund a separate program. Hope you heard that one out. Sparing Southbridge taxpayers.
Councilor
you.
Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sandy, we've been doing the social service projects for like 5 years or so now, because I came on 6 years ago, and it was new, the allowing from the government to let us spend some of our CDBG money on social services. You came to council. We said, yeah, that'd be a great idea. But is it not true, to Councilor Manna's point, in terms of, I'd like to spread it around some more? Well, first, there's many components. You put out an RFP. You have to have people interested in wanting to participate to the rules and regulations that are stipulated in that RFP, unfortunately, and they can be complicated. But also, as you've talked to us before, anytime we have these grants, CDBG grants, we have to administer them. Your office has to administer them. So the more spread out, the more people involved, the more difficult it is to oversee and control. Yes?
Very much so. Just writing the grants, I mean, to be honest, it's been several days since I had a day off because these grants are so difficult to write.
Right.
And so what we do is we get the requests for proposals, we evaluate them, we select the ones we're going to be able to fund, then we have to plug it in. That's what I should be doing downstairs now. It's an incredible amount of work. And then Rose in our office has to train the people on how to document their income and bring them into the, it's a bureaucratic program. That's all there is to it.
Right.
So it's a lot of work. And what we originally thought would happen would be that it would be a seed program. And we would fund programs just to see how they were going, and then they would go on and spread their wings.
Right.
Which would have been probably, that's not the way it's worked out, but if you do, I think 3 is really a little too many. But it was very hard to say no to any of these needs, so we're doing 3.
Right.
If you approve it.
Great. And I appreciate your efforts towards this. You do a great job on the grant side of things, and we do appreciate that. And again, having been here and gone through this process a number of years now, I understand. And I, like you, I thought it was great to start something, but the people themselves have to eventually, the groups, everybody would like a handout to support their program, but eventually that program has to fly on its own in some way and should not expect to be a budget item in our CDBG grant program. I mean, that's just, to do that is a nail in your coffin, so to say, I think. So while we're continuing in some, on one level to help one group again, it's refreshing to see that we're doing a couple of other programs that will hopefully succeed and have good fruit.
And they are diverse.
Right.
They are diverse.
So
There
that's
will be-
wonderful.
Everybody will be.
And I would urge any counselors who, if you've not ever seen these proposals, the full-blown proposals that go out and come in with requirements that we used to grade and then pick from, and then how they have to be overseen in terms of, these the people who get the money have to report back to the office with how they're spending it. What, there's it's weekly, quarterly, there's a whole bunch of different parameters for what they have to do.
Lots,
Right,
reports,
and
all kinds of
you
stuff.
should take a look at the paperwork because it's quite intense. And I just, applaud the offices for, your department for keeping up with this. And obviously, it's wonderful for those who are recipients, but it comes with a lot of responsibility on both sides, the town side and the recipient side. So it's a blessing that we can do this. Someday we may not. If our monies go down, we have to keep the money in-house to do, whether it's housing rehabilitations or the economic development or, those things that affect the overall community. We may not have a social component at some point, but those are choices we made as a council a number of years ago. So thank you again for your work on this. Appreciate it.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes, I, for one, I am glad to see the social service component back, because last year was cut out. There was nothing. And I know when it was first brought up, there was only a small component of 25,000. And I'm glad to see 100,000 being used in such a, again, if we understand this money, we receive this money because we're an entitlement community. And an entitlement community means there's a lot of needs, a lot of necessities, there's a lot of things that we have to bring up to speed. We can talk about them, you can talk about that culture, this culture, but in reality, all the cultures need to be brought up to speed. So, and the only way to do it is investing in social services. And to help Councilor Manna in regards to at least the 25,000, the youth component, that is, I believe, several youth organizations working together as a collaborative that came out of the YMCA Summit, that they're going to be working together. I believe even Cops and Kids was part of that discussion, and they're going to be part of that group also that's going to be forming this main group to develop this program to help with our youth services. So, because a lot of youth organizations are noticing that the pot is very little and there's a great need. So the only way to reach is to join forces with others. And when you join forces with others, what ends up happening is those that provide the grants say, hey, why give 25,000 to one when I can give 25,000 for two organizations that are working together? So, I am glad to see the increase from a couple months ago, but also to see it back because last year it was completely cut out. So I'm glad to see this moving forward.
Councilor Vandal?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mrs. Zackley. Mrs. Zackley, the CDBG money can be used to fix Oak Ridge Cemetery, am I correct?
I don't know, I do not know. If that subject has never come up, and so what we would...
I thought I brought that up a couple of times.
I don't remember that you
Okay,
did. I
that's
have
fine.
never checked into it. To be honest, when if the Community Development Block Grant Program, you have to assist people of low, moderate income or correct issues or address issues of slum and blight. So you would have to make the argument that whatever you did to the cemetery was either assisting people of low, moderate income or the other. So I don't know where that would fit in. Like I said, I don't remember that you brought it up.
Right.
We would have
Well, I
to.
remember bringing it up, because I've always talked about Oak Ridge Cemetery. It's in dire
We
need.
applied for some funds several years ago. We applied to Mass Historic for some funding to do quite a bit of work in Oak Ridge, but we were turned down.
Could you check into that for me? Because we need new roads in that cemetery, and it's our cemetery. Oak Ridge Cemetery, Town Cemetery, it's in dire need of a lot of work. I was told that CDBG will cover that, so if you would look into it.
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll check on it.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any other questions or comments on the matter? Seeing none, Roll call, please.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Estrada?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Vecchia?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
8 yes.
We move on to agenda item number 17, Councilors Forum, and tonight we will start with Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, I just got a few things. Number one, I want to congratulate and commend the Jacob Edwards Library staff. I was able to attend the legislative breakfast, which was intended by Senator Ryan Fatman, also State Representative Peter Durant, and also neighboring State Rep Joe McKenna was also there, and I was also Councilor Manna and Councilor Clements were there that morning, and I just want to commend the Jacob Edwards Library for putting on, Councilor Steve was there too, excuse me, for a great morning, and it was great to see people come out and hear the dire need for more funding for our library and how we can advocate also through our legislative body to try to get more money for our library due to because they are doing some great work, and the programming down there is as somebody that takes advantage of it with my children it's great. It's top notch. Also, I want to the Southbridge Bicentennial Committee is holding a dance through time at the Knights of Columbus on Saturday, February 21st from 7 to 11. Tickets are $10 each and are available at the Town Hall and Library. It's a great way to celebrate Valentine's Day after this week's big snowstorm. The second thing, the third thing I want to mention, I know through you, Mr. Chair, to the Town Manager, I know earlier this year we hired an engineer to kind of work on a road pavement plan. And I know the winter has been really tough on our roads this year. I know being here, I was notified that somebody just got a flat tire because they hit a pothole on Hamilton Street. I'm going to refer them to the DPW or the town, to see.
They should file a written claim with the town. We send it to the insurance company, and then they take a look at it.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information. I'll relay that. But also, can we get a copy of that road payment plan and how we're going to move forward? Because I know our governor released Chapter 90 power money. So hopefully we can tackle some of these roads, because I know we want to focus on a lot of our main roads. But for people that don't live on main roads, some of these roads are horrible outside of town. Hill Street, Prospect Street, Hartwell Street, some of our manholes, man covers, and they're about 3 feet deep. So I know the winter season's tough on us, but I just would like to see that work and seeing if we can establish something moving forward.
That work is all done, report's all written. It's in the form of a PowerPoint presentation with a lot of slides. And what I'm doing right now, when I get the budget done, because this will be a capital budget discussion, is I'm trying to distill that down into a few. The acting town engineer who wrote it is an engineer, and he wrote it with incredible detail. And I'm trying to get it into a little less detail so that, because it would be a 2-hour presentation at the very least. So what I want to do is give the council a copy of the whole thing, but try to distill it, and then we want to give you a presentation some night is when we can get some agenda time. But it's all done, it's finished, and it's ready to be presented. We just need to get some time on an agenda to do it, if it stops snowing.
No, absolutely. I just don't want to lose sight that, I know projects come up, and I know for lack of laborers, a lot of projects get pushed to the back burner, because that's what it is. Our DPW doesn't have the manpower to get all the major projects done that we have. I mean, we have an issue up on Dresser Street that's been covered and has created almost a one-lane road now with the snow. So, you know, and I know the sidewalk project by Brookside Terrace took forever to complete, which they're not shoveled. So there's some, you know, I just don't want it to just prolong, because I would like to see something done with that.
If any of you would like to look at the full-blown thing, shoot me an email, and I will attach it and send it to you. It is very concise, very detailed, and it is also a sure cure for insomnia, I promise you, because it is really detailed. But if any of you want that, I'll be happy to shoot it out to you by email. But we are going to try to prepare an abstract of it, so it's not so bad.
Okay, great. And the final thing that I would like to address, yes, the council leaders went to the newspaper, and we made a statement on how we felt that an open search for our superintendent was necessary. And I want to commend the school committee for making that decision on Tuesday night to have an open search for the next superintendent. And I would urge both boards, both governing boards, as I am the chair of the town manager search committee, we cannot screw this one up. Whoever comes in next on both sides has to be vetted, has to be looked at, has to be questioned, and truth be told, and I'm going to say it again, has to be held accountable for all the decisions and actions that they're going to be taking for our community, because our community does deserve the best, and our community does deserve transparency. I stand with what I say and what was written on my behalf on that newspaper article. We can't screw this up. And if Ms. Stanton, to what I hear, has been doing a good job, if she feels and wants to apply for the job, I welcome her and I encourage her to apply publicly. But that being said, on both sides, we have to have open process, and the committees have to vet out their candidates and make sure that the person that is going to fill the next town manager and the next superintendent are people of integrity, people that are going to be held accountable, and people that have they have their heart here for our community, that's going to serve our community wholeheartedly. So with that being said, again, I'm not here bashing the school committee. That wasn't my point. My point was to urge and just send a message that I personally feel that the open search was the best for our community. And thank you to the school committee, that happened. It's not easy being up here. So if people feel that our jobs, that we're not doing a good job, there's two things that can happen. You can go downstairs to the town clerk's office and pull a recall petition. Start that. Ask the public to recall us if you feel that we're not doing a good job. And then the other way is pull out papers and run for office. And you're going to see that sometimes 40 hours a week is not enough to give to your community in some people's eyes. None of us are getting paid. We all do it because we love our community. We want to help our community. We don't agree all the time. As you've seen tonight, it's 10 o'clock and we're going to go into another room and hash some things out again. We won't agree, but at the end of the day, we all have the best interests for our community. So if people feel that we're not doing the right job, go down to the town clerk's office. It's not going to cost you no money to recall us. And at the same time, if you want to run, it's not going to cost you no money to run for office. But if you do a recall, know that it will cost the town money unless you do it during an election season. So just, again, I'm not here to throw punches at nobody. We're both trying to do our best. But when it comes down to it, we have to hold each other accountable to the decisions that we're going to make. And with that being said, I love my community. If you want to know, I have about 400 days left, and I'm going to enjoy all 400 days that I have left on this town council.
All set. Councilor Clements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, you took the bicentennial dance. I was going to say something about that, so we'll cross that one off. Last Friday, as Councilor Krasko said, there was a wonderful meeting at the library. They did a great job. The library staff and all did a wonderful job hosting, and the library committee hosting and making everybody feel very welcome at the legislative breakfast. But after that, there was also a tour that went on at the local airport, right up there on the hill. And again, we had our, Councilor Manna was the one who initiated this and had our state rep and our new Senator Ryan Fatman both up there, along with a number of the airport committee members, myself, Councilor Krasko went up, and a number of others. We checked out the diner. We were looking at some of the improvements that are being made. You know, everybody keeps wanting to have food up there and get a restaurant. Well, I have to tell you that John Silverberg and Ron Plouffe are spearheading the renovations up there, and while Ron works for us part-time as our airport director, John Silverberg, a pilot who uses the airport, keeps his plane there from out of town with family ties here, they're doing a great job, working hard, using their own time, energy, and a lot of their own resources to get that building compliant so that we can go out eventually and get somebody in there to run that restaurant and open it back up for the public, which is good for the entire community. We also went over to the main terminal building and met with the flight school, and again, they were able to see where the money is going and what's happening here in Southbridge, and they were very impressed. It was a great meeting of the minds. We continually dogged them with questions as to how perhaps they could get us some more money. Perhaps energy efficient windows, maybe there's some sort of grant for something like that. There were many jabs that were made, but in all seriousness, certainly any efforts that can come out of that from their behalf would be wonderful and welcome here to Southbridge. So it was a great morning. I applaud the Airport Commission for all the work they've been doing up there, keeping the airport open. When this snow comes, they have to plow all those runways. They've got to keep the lights visible. They've got to, keep things going up there. And it was great to see what a good job everybody is doing. A lot of volunteer hours going on up at our local airport. And they also informed us that the new card reader, the fuel system, which you'd heard that we'd spent some money on, is done, and the automated card reader is done, and so is installed, I should say, and they are now selling fuel at a cheaper rate than Worcester and making money. So it's a wonderful thing. They were very excited about that fact, as have the pilots been, who have been coming in and realizing they can get fuel now right here in Southbridge. So again, it's great forward progress for our community. And then we were informed that the new terminal building that we have funding for is almost ready to go out for RFP, and they hope to break ground maybe in May and be done in approximately 4 months. So a lot of exciting things happening up there at the airport still. No doubt the school has lots of events that they want to bring here for the local community, and we're looking forward to a wonderful opening of the new terminal building in the fall sometime, and try to keep you posted. I'm sure they'll come in, and our airport director will come in and fill us in. But I just wanted to update you, because there are some great things that go on here in Southbridge, and a lot of times people overlook them. They just see the snowbanks and they can't see beyond, but things are going really well, and there's plenty of room for improvement, of course, but I just want to give you some, bright news and things that are going on. And thank you, Councilor Manna, for giving us the opportunity to go up there and take a look around on Friday with the rest of the people. So that's all I have. Thanks, DPW, doing a great job.
Thank you. Councilor Estrada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first point is, I have no problem. The professional is a good payment or good payment. I am the professional. My point is, or my complaint, is that we are bringing a complaint of your people. Never any money. It's magic. When the position increase the payment, increase the salary. We're all time, now 6 months, the town council. Remember, 1, 2, 5 complain, Mr. Baker, for problem, the social problem, that I need money for, no money, no money. It's my personal point. Second point, for Mr. Baker, good job. The last snowfall, your leadership, my personal note, A+. Good job. Call of Duty. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I do have a few things, but I will be quick. First, I want to say a couple weeks ago, I was able to attend the MMA conference out in Boston with another counselor here, and it was very informative. I got more out of it this year. There were some really good sessions and whatnot. There's another unfunded mandate coming down upon us, and that's mandate for stormwater treatment, so be on the lookout for that. There's a change in the way remote sessions is going to work for the Commission on Disability. As of April 7th, they will be able to adopt their own rules without having to go through Town Council for permission. So I didn't know if anybody was aware of that, but we found that out at this meeting, and they're the only board, though, that is going to be allowed to do that. All the other boards will have to go through the Town Council to do that. Also, I stopped at this booth of Arlington's, and I saw this visual government that they had showing, and it's they created 3 or 4 people created this program. Some were past selectmen of the town and on the finance committee and whatnot. And what they did was that they created this program, and they took the money, their budgets, and they put it in layers, and I can't really go through it right now to explain it because it's really difficult to explain, but if you go on their website, there is a link and you can go to it. And what they do is they put the money for the budget line items in a spreadsheet, and they upload it, and you can go on and click and see where your money's being spent. You go on and you put in the amount of taxes that you pay, and say you go to the school department, it'll show you how much of your taxes is going into the school. Or you go onto the DPW and you'll see how much of your taxes is going into the DPW. It's really interesting, and I really would like to see a discussion on this for our town. It's inexpensive. There's a startup fee if you can't do it yourself. We have IT people here. It's rather simple from what they said. So it's something I would really encourage everybody to look into. You can go on the Arlington's website, and there's links to that. It's called VizGov. Also, I want to mention the snowstorms. Our DPW has been doing a tremendous job. Our town manager, all of our department heads, the leadership I have seen. I have received a few complaints, as Town Manager Pecos did note. Also, just be aware that of the bylaws, you do have to have your sidewalks shoveled, cleaned out 24 hours. You should be adhering to the alternate parking rules, because a lot of our streets in town, especially with the snow, are very narrow. And if you're not adhering to those rules, if there's an emergency on your street, well, good luck getting the fire department down or even an ambulance, because some of those roads are so narrow, even with the snow, that if you're not adhering to those parking rules, then nobody's going to get down the street, not even a regular car. So, and another thing, and I actually went out and told someone, knocked on their door, and told them they weren't allowed to do this. You do not throw the snow that you're shoveling into the street. You throw it into your yard, into the snowbank. It doesn't go into the street. And I encourage the community to continue to call if you see something that's going on that shouldn't be going on, if you have a complaint about something. And there's just one more thing. You know, I stand by what Councilor Moriarty and Councilor Carrasco, I read the article in the newspaper, and I was very happy to see. If we're not outspoken on things, if we keep things, you don't want to keep things like and, but you have to be outspoken. Sometimes being outspoken gets things done. And some of the committees that I see, and I'm not going to name names, it seems like that they don't want you speaking out against them. Certain people don't want you speaking out against them. Well, you know, when you go into politics, you got to have thick skin. You got to expect people to speak out against you. It's just part of the game. And sometimes you just have to take that criticism and use it as a learning tool. You know, that's what I do. But there's just one thing I want to say, and it's a quote from James Madison. The censorial power is in the people over the government, and not the government over the people. So if you have something that's on your mind, and if you see something wrong, don't be afraid to come out and say it. Especially if it's for me, please come and say it. I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not gonna belittle you. I'm gonna take your criticisms and I'm gonna use it as a learning tool. And that's all. Oh, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of quick things. One is just a quick question. If you could, if you, Mr. Hickos, could also get, we've brought up a couple of references to the goals and objectives, but I don't think we've ever gotten the finalized goals and objectives report.
Really?
I don't think we ever got it.
We did.
Did we?
I think
I remember we talked about it, and you said you were going to take it back and edit it and finalize it and send it around. I never saw it again. Thank you.
Either for the first time or again, but either way, you'll get it.
I know I got the first one,
Okay.
but I don't think I ever got the second one. Let's see. One of the things I wanted to point out is that I was talking to somebody and who was concerned about what he was describing as old-style lights. I think he was referring to South Street in Maine. He was pointing out that at least, and I don't know if I've seen this personally, but I don't normally drive through that intersection, but that at a certain point you can't actually see what color the light is.
Really?
Traffic lights?
Yeah, the traffic lights. I noticed that's true also of West Street in Maine, but I know from seeing that you have to be well beyond the stop line to do that. So I'm not sure about South Street in Maine, but it comes a point where you can't actually see which color is lit. So if we could take a look at that.
Sure.
And see
It's South Street in Maine?
Yeah.
In front of the Felix Gatineau?
Yeah.
Is it that single one?
I believe so, yeah.
Sometimes you can't tell.
Yeah, exactly. I was told about that there's a concern about possibly some sort of an issue of water pressure over on Worcester Street, possibly in the 500s block. I'm not sure if there's a leak or something, but if the DPW could take a look at that. I guess there's a concern of water pressure there, and I know there's also a concern of water pressure if it hasn't already been addressed.
We did look at that. It was pothole. An indentation, we thought, we got a complaint. I had a crew out there within about 20 minutes. The concern was that it might have been a broken water main. It wasn't. It was just water gathering in the pavement. We don't know why, but it wasn't anything serious.
Was there a
If you get
water
any
pressure
further
issue?
reports, let me know, but that was yesterday afternoon about, I'm going to say around 4:30, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Did you check it to see about a water pressure issue?
I
About not
think
being
it was
able to-
Tuesday.
Okay.
I think it was Tuesday.
Okay.
But if you get any more reports, let me know. We'll check it again to be sure.
And there's one here. No, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Vecchia.
All right, to begin with, the chairman talks about proper decorum. On councilors' forum, I think you know that the vice chairman's supposed to speak last, not first. Secondly, all we did tonight was increase spending. And we're going to increase spending, I'm voting no. About a month ago, I didn't vote for the higher pay for the assistant town accountant. I know the town manager is doing an excellent job. If I was to rate him, I'd give him an A. But I'm not a politician who's going to vote for something, this extra $162. I just can't vote for it because I haven't been voting for anything. That's personal. I like the town manager. But I answer to the taxpayers only, and I'm getting a little I'm losing hope on the town councilors because the majority tells me they want to cut taxes. but their words have been speaking differently with all these increases. And I just want the town manager to know, you're doing a good job, but there's no exceptions. I've been saying that right along the last 2 months. I'm not voting for anything. So I like you a lot, but I just can't vote for it. Thank you.
All set? Councilor Vandal?
Through you to the town manager. We were in the process of getting a survey on prices for the tonnage at Casella up there. Do you know where that stands now?
The consultant called about 3 weeks ago. He was well into the process. He had sent the questionnaires out to the landfills that were identified. He got responses from some of them, but as we predicted, he didn't get responses from all of them, so he was getting the contract so he could fill out the questionnaire. He also asked if we could add 1 or 2 landfills. We had 3 in the contract to add later. I believe 1 was in upstate New York, might have been 1 in Maine, so they are moving along.
Okay. Through you to Mr. Carrasco. When you asked about the roads are in dire need of repair. Just about every road in Southbridge. I've been talking to Heather Blakely, the DPW director, and she and I are going to schedule a meeting, and we're going to go over that, and we're going to get that report that, the company said that they were going to help us with the roads, tell us which roads need to be done and whatsoever. Okay? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councilor Van, please include me in that. Let me know that I can make sure to be there because.
Definitely, but it's going to be at a subcommittee meeting. And
okay,
so
absolutely.
I'll advise. I'll warn you.
Absolutely, thank you.
That's what I had presumed, that we would go to your subcommittee first and give the presentation before it comes to council.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just briefly, I, again, typically don't do the council's forum at this point, but I know just in response or clarification to the question or the comment about Councilor Carrasco leading off tonight in terms of the council's forum, that was per his specific request. So typically that routine of kind of going the other way around is what we do, but he specifically requested to go first, so that's fine by me. I'm nothing if not amenable. And then the only other thing I wanted to just point out, one is something that was pointed out earlier by Councilor Carrasco and possibly somebody else, but nomination papers are currently available downstairs in the town clerk's office. You technically have till late May to get those and turn those in. You need just a percentage of the number of voters who come out, which is not exactly a huge number every year. So it's only about 44 signatures, which, quite frankly, all it takes is standing outside Big Bunny for an hour. And certainly, this has not been our norm in terms of length of meeting and tone of meeting as late, but be part of the solution, and that's all you can ask for. And then just the last note I meant to bring up earlier, just because I've been asked to, because I'm a glutton for punishment and have a hard time telling charitable stuff no, the Tri-Town Domestic Violence Task Force recently reached out to me, and I don't know who nominated or suggested me. I would hope I don't find out because I'm not thrilled. But they've asked me to take part in their Dancing with the Stars fundraising event on April 11th at the Burgess Elementary School in Sturbridge. I would say if any of you have seen me dance, but I know none of you have because it just isn't something that happens.
When is the date and time and place of this so we can get the cable there?
It is Saturday, April 11, at Burgess Elementary School here in, not here in Sturbridge, but in neighboring Sturbridge. I do not have the time. I believe it's 7 p.m., but I don't have that in front of me. I know last year they had Senator Ann Goby who took part, the principal from the junior high school at Tantascwa. It was won by a police officer from, I think it was Wales. They haven't, to my knowledge, finished lining up their so-called stars, but I do know that Dennis McCurdy from McCurdy Insurance is going to be taking part, as well as, they've not announced his name, but a well-known area musician is apparently going to be taking part, as well as this guy here with 2 left feet. So if you want a good laugh come April Fool's Day will be about 10 days late, but it all goes to a very good cause with the Tri-Town Domestic Violence Task Force, which is obviously a problem in every community, for something we should pay attention to. And with that, we will have the agenda item number 18, which is discussion of the next meeting date.
Next meeting will be Monday, February 23rd, 2015, here at Council Chambers at 7 p.m.
Pending snowstorms?
I'm sorry?
Pending a snowstorm?
Don't swear like that. Agenda item number 19, vote to enter into executive session according to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23B, to consider the purchase, exchange, taking, lease, or value of real property, and vote to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
You need a roll
Actually, yeah, we do.
call.
We're going into executive session, so a roll call, please, Mr. Gullis.
Counselor Estrada?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yeah.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Vecchia?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we'll be going into adjournment.
No, we adjourn, you can adjourn in there. You said, and for adjournment.
Yeah.